Ready, Greg? Call the meeting to order of the Wright County Planning Commission for November 7th. First thing on the agenda tonight is action on the October 10th, 2024 minutes. Has everybody been able to look at them? And is there any additions or corrections? There's no additions or corrections. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First thing on the agenda tonight is the Arbor Creek Holdings LLC. And we have findings on that, and public comment has been closed. So Barry or Greg, if you'd like to take.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Is this working? Doesn't sound like it is. I'll use this one. Mr. Chair, thank you. Before you today are the notice and order for approval of conditional use permit with findings and conditions. As directed at the last meeting on October 10th, 2024, the Planning Commission directed the attorney and staff to draft findings consistent with approval. Those are now before you with exhibits 1 through 5 and the proposed conditions. As you indicated, the record was closed at the last proceeding on October 10th to further oral and written comment. We haven't received anything, and if we had, it would have been destroyed pursuant to policy. I would note for the board that what you received earlier, there have been a couple typographical changes that are non-substantive within it, just literally cleaning up grammatical syntax errors. So otherwise, everything's there. I believe the board has had time to review it and consider it, and staff believes it accurately reflects the discussion and record on file, and we leave it up to the board for further discussion.
All right, thank you, Greg. Is there any other discussion on the findings that we have before us? If not,
Mr. Chair, I do have a correction
okay.
on the findings, first of all, and it's on Exhibit 3, Item 5.
Mr. Chair,
Is that done already?
that's already done. That's the one we corrected.
Okay. I'm done.
Thank you, Dan. Is there any other discussion? Janice?
Yes, I would like to just add a comment. I abstained the last time that it was voted on, and since that time I've had time to reflect a little, and one of the comments that I'd made was that I didn't feel that there was enough emphasis put on the fact that if all of the cement that's going to be poured, concrete poured for the driveways and so on, it's going to cause a lot of extra water. And one of the things that I think we should address and maybe just add to the findings would be that the pond be constructed to accommodate a garden of plants that will filter out drainage that comes off the hills and down on concrete. It's very popular in the, excuse me, I'm having trouble speaking. It's very popular with the DNR to have gardens that are in wetland areas and are emptying into the lakes to filter out any runoff that comes down. So I would like to suggest that we consider adding that the holding pond there be constructed to be a rain garden. That's the term I was trying to find, so that it would filter any of the drainage that gets washed down on the cement and then go through the swales to get before it gets to the lake. So if that's at all possible to add something like that to this now, I would like to just add that in. And also, there is no emphasis or statements in here about the maintenance of all the concrete, of the curbs and things going down the hill, and what happens if the property is sold. Well, this is a conditional use permit. Will the new owners be responsible then for taking care of something that usually is designated and and handled by a street department? Those were two questions that came to my mind, and I'd like the board to consider it and maybe discuss it a bit.
Okay, thank you, Janice.
Mr. Chair, so the basically the collection area for any water coming off that is part of the plan. The conditional use permit is conditioned on as per plan submitted, drawn and drafted by Dunick, signed by Jason Versteeg, and it specifically references the plan. Since this is a conditional use permit, if anything is done that is contrary to the plan by the next owner, if it's not maintained, it's a violation of the plan, which then it would come back here for that review. So that's all covered within the findings because it's listed as per plan submitted. So if anything in this plan changes, or they're no longer following the plan, or the gutter dilapidates to the point where it's not accomplishing what the plan says it's accomplishing, we can go back in and violate the CUP and get them right back out in front of us to get that corrected. Or have them corrected in accord with the plan. That's their two options. So that's taken care of with the findings.
Both with the rain garden and with the the curb and gutters.
Yes, the engineer did talk about the water collection areas after it comes down the hill. There's an intake area for any surface water that comes down. That leads into a tile that goes into a swale. So
Yes.
basically both sides of the property from roughly the bottom or the toe of the bluff to the lake where the ice ridge is, they're gonna be swaled and planted and act as rain gardens. They don't need to do as much as you would see on other lakes because of the soil borings that were done. You're talking about gravel, which is sand and gravel, which is what you put in the bottom of a rain garden to help with the infiltration. You don't have to do that here, it's naturally occurring. And their plan indicates planting of wet species of plants within those swales
Okay.
to help with infiltration of water.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Okay, do we have any other discussion? We don't have any other discussion. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion to adopt the notice and order for approval of conditional use permit with findings and conditions as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Let the record show the motion carried.
Sarah, you're here? I'll give you a copy quick.
There you go.
All right, Mr. Chair, if the record could so reflect that Sarah Parmelo, manager or owner of Arbor Creek Holdings LLC, was provided a copy of the findings for approval as adopted by the board.
Right, thank you, so noted. Number 2 on the agenda tonight is Coal Shake. And anybody pertaining to that, if you please want to come up, give your name for the record, please, and we will get started.
Coal Shake.
All right, Barry, when you're ready.
Give me just a second, Ms. Chairman, just wrapping this signatures up. Yes, Mr. Chairman, this matter was heard on 9/19 and was supposed to be before us on 10/10, but Mr. Shake couldn't make it. He was out in the Carolinas, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And so this is the continuation of that hearing. The request is for a non-commercial contractor's yard for a tree service business on roughly 40.37 acres. Currently, as it sits, the only thing located on the property is the existing pole building or accessory structure, and then there is a cell phone tower on the property. Mr. Shake's plan is to construct a dwelling unit within that existing building, which is required in order to run the contractor's yard. As the commission may recall, the definition of a contractor's yard is a business, contracting business in the building trades, and the business must be operated on the homestead of the business operator. So this permit can only be granted with the dwelling on the site. In this case, Mr. Shake is looking at purchasing the property, so without a dwelling unit on it right now, that's what's before the commission, is to allow the business to operate and give him time to build the house and still operate at the same time. If the board recalls, we have had one other one of these that we've had in the last year or so, but that's the general premise. And most of these times when they're looking at buying the property, if it doesn't exist, it's up to the commission whether or not you want to allow that operation before the house is built and the property homesteaded. But those are the two requirements that are with it. There has been a draft motion, or motion that has been drafted that does include that. Those conditions or what's on there is going to be up to the board to determine, but I kind of used the framework of the one that we had previously. So the township has approved. We haven't had any other comments other than Soil and Water has responded that there are wetlands on the property and zero fill or drainage is allowed.
Thank you, Barry. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I guess to me, the biggest thing is just being allowed to burn. This is we're gonna bring in the wood and stuff. So I just wanna make sure that that would be allowed. That's really the only other thing that we're looking for.
What is your definition of burning?
Uh,
I mean, how big of fires, controlled
that,
burns?
yeah, it'd be controlled burns. So that'd come down to you guys if you'd rather me burn small piles frequently or just do it once a year. Just all at once. I guess that doesn't matter to me. That'd come down to what's preferred from you guys. Or.
I guess, is it a definition of an open brush pile?
Yep.
Is it contained in a building?
No, it'd be an open brush pile.
Open brush pile.
How often would that occur?
So that's it wouldn't matter to me. I could do it once a year all at once, or I could do it every month to keep it small, so it's just a short burn. That one, and it's just gonna be the brush. So pretty much anything 6 inches or smaller. The rest will all get processed into firewood.
Barry, if I may ask you, Barry, could you put up, what is the land use plan for that area?
It's rural residential for this particular
But-
property.
But the surrounding area, I mean, what has been rezoned? What is in the plan for future?
Except to the north, everything is either rural residential or some type of higher density residential. That higher density residential area is primarily already developed. The rest of the property around it is rural residential, which is generally that AR 10-acre lot minimum or PUD, special circumstances, maybe R2A. So that's what you were looking for.
Okay, thank you. I guess that would be some of my concerns with burning, the density of the population around, for the smoke and the nuisance of the smoke would be some of my concern, depending on how much you're burning, how big the piles are,
Okay.
so. Is there any other questions here before I go to the public?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the applicant, Mr. Shake, it may be in your earlier narrative, but where would you plan on stockpiling this 6-inch or smaller brush and burn it?
I was thinking in the northwest corner. There's kind of a low spot down there, so we could get away from the road too. So there's not a big pile right next to the highway. So it'd be fairly hidden down there and easy to control.
Thank you.
So by northwest corner, you're talking this area down here?
Yep.
Chair Mall.
Gee.
And I believe there's, when we went to look, am I correct that there's some big poles, like electrical poles going?
Yep, those run directly, like right through the middle of the property.
So it would be away from, like,
yeah.
would it be behind your garage then, like that shed?
Right about here, you can see the lines
you
going through, those little white streaks.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's well aware from, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Mr. Shake, is there an access off the Township Road there, 25th Street Southeast, to get to the northwest corner?
No, there's a small, just dirt road right now that would take you down there. That once you turn into the driveway itself, it's off to the west side. You can kind of see where the green strip comes out. Yeah, right through there. There's already a path that follows
I
down.
see. And you would continue almost to the westerly end of that open field
Yep.
with your pilings. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll go to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment? If not, we'll bring it back up here. I guess one of the other questions for us we'd have for you is what would be the timeline for you to be owning it and homesteading it and living there so that we can fulfill one of our requirements?
I'd say by end of next year, I could probably have a building built. Because the goal would be to get this closed, and then I'd be selling my property that I have now. And then I'd start right away in the spring, more or less, start building.
So if we gave you a time of November 1st, December 1st,
I'd say probably December 1st, just to play it safe.
and you'd meet the requirements of living there and
Yeah.
homestead.
Yeah, right now I'm driving 2.5 hours to work every day. So I live up in Motley, and my tree service is based out of Plymouth right now. So 5 hours of driving every day gets very old.
You have an incentive is what you're telling us.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Dan?
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the burning part of it. So, and maybe Mr. Kreiser can help with this, but typically if we want to burn a brush pile, we go through the DNR for all our permits. In there, you have to list your size, you know, how big the pile is, and they determine when you can burn, what hours and so forth. How is this different than that?
Mr. Chair. Sorry, we don't have it turned on yet. Mr. Chair, Member Bravender, the difference here is that we have a business that is going to be doing it on their property, and this use wasn't even provided to us in the application materials. But I think we can do as Barry has come up with some proposed conditions. I think we was proposing burning up to 3 times a year with the appropriate permits from the DNR or whatever authorities need to provide it. And then they would take care of it. But I think we would just put a limit on it. We could put a location on it. But given the fact that it's associated with this business, we should condition it. If it was just his residential use, him out there trimming his own trees on his own property and burning it, we wouldn't regulate it. It'd be seen as a permitted use.
So looking at the property, obviously I have a problem with burning if there's a strong south wind. Because you know where,
North wind.
no, south wind will carry it into the residences though.
No, south wind, it comes from the south. South wind would come from the south heading north.
Yep.
So you wouldn't want a north wind.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep, I was the wrong direction, but anyway, that would be, I wouldn't want the smoke blowing over the residences when they're burning, you know, if you have those strong winds, and I don't know if that's a condition we can make or not.
That is a reasonable condition we can make, Member Ravender.
Okay. And I guess we already talked about the homesteading and that part of it I'm adamant about, that you are living there in the time allotted and homesteaded it. Guess that's the only other questions I have.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, one more.
Finish.
I had a question for the applicant. The reason I'm asking these is because we have a tree service in our township too, and I know how they operate. Typically, they chip everything under 6 inches, or actually 8 inches and smaller.
Yep.
Is that something you do or not?
So I used to, but I no longer do.
Is there a reason why?
The cost of it,
Okay,
as far as getting rid of it and chipping it itself.
okay,
And then you have to figure out how to get rid of the wood chips on top of that. It just gets very costly doing the chipping.
okay,
And that's the way we're doing it right now, but
okay. That's it. Thank you.
Pat?
And I maybe missed this last time, but the narrative on file has the living unit inside of the existing shed. It sounds like the plan is not for that to become the homestead residence, but to build an entirely new structure, right?
yeah, I would like to build a completely new structure.
Do we need to make any adjustments with the motion that's talking about doing all these things consistent with the plans and narrative on file if we don't have any plan on file or narrative about where the house is going to go, the fact that there's going to be a separate dwelling, or can we just make the requirement more general that it be a homesteaded residence within the by 12/125 or whenever we set?
Well, I think the condition that we have covers it. You know, from our standpoint, yes, there is a rough floor plan, so that is an option, but if he chooses not to do that and do a regular stick-built house or a manufactured or whatever else we allow as a dwelling unit, I'm gonna see that condition is satisfied. I'm not gonna gig it if he decides to build the house compliant someplace else on the property. I just wanna make sure that there's a dwelling there, and this was kind of like a quick, easy measure. If that doesn't happen, he could still, this is an option, so at least we have it as an option, so he can do this, what I had up on the screen. But if he decides not to do this and just do a regular stick-built home, I'm gonna accept that, because right now, if he wasn't doing the business, he could do that. So, I'm good either way.
Okay. Related sort of follow-up, Barry, I remember we had a similar issue to this with the property along 25. And I don't know if that's been within the last year or what the timing exactly was, but I'm interested in our recent experience on compliance.
Well, I believe there's roughly 2 months left for that condition to be met. As currently, we do not have an actual permit to build the house yet. So I would say at this point, it's unlikely that condition's gonna be met, and we'll likely have to start some enforcement action with it.
Okay? And is there any lesson learned from that experience that we could impose as a condition ahead of time by way of making any compliance easier as you're getting closer to having to do something there that we could include here so that we can avoid that problem? Or are we just stuck with it's the condition, and if violated, we will institute the appropriate proceedings?
Well, there's, what I basically see two options. You either approve it with a time frame, and if they don't meet it, we then have the enforcement action, or you not allow the business before the house is built. You condition the operation of the business from the property on the house being completed.
Mr.
Those
Chair,
are the two options that you have.
Mr. Chair, Member Malberg, given the fact that this is an interim use permit, I would actually recommend, if you're looking at requiring that the deadline be met, that you just amend paragraph 3 to state that if it isn't acquired by October 10th, 2025, that the interim use permit automatically expires.
Or if it's not satisfied by.
Yeah.
And Member Mall had indicated December 1st, so there'll likely be a change to that, but, which I kind of already made.
Would it make any sense to have some sort of interim deadline for the filing of the building permit application? right? The current one you're dealing with. If we had set long enough ahead of time for a building permit application to be filed to build the house, then you'd know the issue was coming several months earlier in the process.
Mr. Shake, when are you planning on filing for a building permit? Do you have plans ready to go, or what are you planning?
I don't have a plan right now, but it'd be as soon as it thaws out in the spring, I'd start getting it going.
Yeah, I would recommend having your plans drawn over the winter, get your application in February, March-ish.
Right.
We get really busy in March, April. We issue roughly 100 house permits here a year.
Okay.
And so, our lag time from an application to issuance is about a month.
Okay.
And so you'd want to get that going early so that you can break ground as soon as ground is ready.
Yep.
If you're looking at doing that. So, certainly, I guess I haven't seen it as much with this commission as I have with my previous experience with the Board of Adjustment, but the Board of Adjustment has done that for some things that have application deadlines and then another deadline for completion. You could certainly do that. That would basically give a warning. That the one kind of drawback of that is now we got another date that, well, by technical terms, if they don't get that application in, even though it might take them 2 months to build the house, if they don't apply within the deadline, now it's a violation. They have every intentions of having it done by that time. So it does add another thing that now I have to interpret whether or not I want to, how heavy-handed do we get in that specific condition violation? If I talk to the property owner, the applicant, and I have them ready, I'm going to get them in a week, you still pass the deadline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we can solve that by not being too aggressive on the first deadline. If you, how long does it take to stick build a house? 4 months?
Depends upon how good your contractor is and
Fine.
how quickly they can get their
Fine,
subs there.
fine. But if you work back from December 1st of 2025, call it 4 months, call it 5 months, call it 6 months. If we say the application has to be in by May 1st of 2025, that gives Mr. Shake 6 full months almost from now to get plans done and an application submitted. It gives an early opportunity to identify a problem so that you're not having to wait for the violation to happen while folks are potentially taking advantage of a situation by having represented in an application something that they're not going to do. I'm not saying Mr. Shake's that applicant, sounds like he's not. But everybody who stands at that podium sounds like they're going to abide by everything that we say. And sometimes they don't. So I'd like to see some reasonable application date so that there's some progress being made towards complying with the ultimate requirement.
Okay.
I agree.
Ken, did you have something?
Mr. Commissioner Mollberg asked my question, so I'm satisfied.
Is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, is somebody prepared to?
Mr. Chair, I think this might be one where Barry could read a proposed motion and then someone could move it, given the notes Mr. Reinberger has been making here.
Okay,
That's good.
when you are ready, Barry, we're,
Yep. Just, I want to write stuff down so that I'm not too choppy.
please do.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, so a prospective motion could be to approve an interim use permit for a non-commercial contractor's yard in accord with the plans and narrative submitted and the discussion at this hearing with the following conditions. All work must be conducted off-site. Exterior storage is limited to the location noted on the site plan. Dwelling permit must be applied for no later than May 2025, and the structure inspected, completed, and the properly homesteaded no later than December 1st, 2025. Failure to meet either deadline will result in this interim use permit being revoked. 4, outdoor screening requirements must meet the requirements of section 155.078 of the Wright County Code of Ordinances. Township to review in 1 year with subsequent reviews at an interval established by the township. let's add before that one, so that would be number 5, and then move the township review to 6. Burning is allowed 3 times per year with the appropriate state-issued burning permit. Burning is prohibited with a north or northwest wind. Last condition, which would be 7, this permit shall immediately and automatically expire upon transfer, termination of any lease agreement, change in business operations or ownership, or change in homestead classification.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Does somebody want to present that?
I'll present the motion with discussion.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Dan, did you have something to
Yeah,
discuss?
Mr. Chair, on, Barry, on item number 4 for outdoor screening,
Yep.
is your office going to be dealing with that then with the applicant from this point on? Based
Yes.
on 155078?
Yes, so there will need to be some type of fencing area around the outdoor storage area to limit view of that from any residential or adjoining properties.
And then also in that ordinance, it states on the property line from a residential zone that it needs to have on the property line, have a screening there also. Is that something that is going to be required?
In this case, it's not really adjoining a residential district. Adjoining
okay.
would mean that if they share a common property line with a residential neighborhood, then there's screening required. If the commission recalls, we did the same thing with the liquor store up in French Lake. Because there were some requirements there, same type of thing. In this case, it's not actually adjoining a residential. The adjoining lot to the south is an agricultural division, and then you have right-of-way across the street, so there, it actually breaks that adjoining portion. So it's only, the screening is only, and the fencing is only going to be required around that west side of the building to block the view from residential.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, a couple of things. One on the revocation, I think we should have language in there that's, it's revoked without further process, so that it's automatic and they can't interpret it to say, when we passed that, we meant we would institute the proceeding. If that's acceptable, I'd
That's
like to.
acceptable to me, Member Mulberg.
Okay, so I'd
acceptable to
offer that as an amendment. On the fire conditions, so we're sort of saying, number 1, we say all work must be off-site. Number 5, then I think is saying this work can be off-site. So we're saying notwithstanding number 1, fire can happen. I don't know if I missed it or if we're not intending it, limiting the location on the property where the brush pile will be stored and burned to the generally the northwestern portion of the property. And I would say that in addition to the restriction on the north or northwesterly wind, that any other wind, the fire has to take place in such a manner where it will not be a nuisance to nearby residents, because there are nearby residents immediately to the northwest of the northwest corner and to the north by northeast of there. And so just, I know you can't be, you're not lawfully allowed to be a nuisance to your neighbors anyways, but some condition in here that says, just because you got a great southeasterly wind doesn't mean you light the fire and send the smoke into those poor couple houses.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we word that.
The geographic, you can limit it fairly easily to the wood to be stockpiled and burned shall be limited to a location in the northwesterly portion of the property. Then in the fire condition, you would say you can't burn when there is a north or northwesterly wind, or otherwise when the conditions are such that burning would create a nuisance for nearby residences. And just leave it at that.
I think that works, Member Mulberg. We can make that amendment, assuming it's good with the planning commission.
Dan, it's your motion.
Yep.
You okay?
Yeah,
I'm okay with that one. Yeah.
I'm okay too.
That's your second? You're good?
Yep.
Okay.
So how does that read then? Are we going to keep it simple and simply say, what was your last sentence?
That was simple.
I'm sorry?
I said that was simple. I'm convinced that that last sentence can be captured well enough in,
And how does that read?
So I can I can take a stab at the amendment to that condition, which I believe was number
5.
5, would be burning to take place in the northwest corner of the property may be conducted 3 times a year with the appropriate state-issued burning permit. Burning is prohibited with a northwest wind or otherwise where it would become a nuisance to neighboring residences. Is that a good summation of that, Member Malberg? That's what I was trying to
That's
write
good
down
enough.
as you were talking, but,
That was good enough.
okay.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? There's no other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Number 3 on the agenda tonight is Brian Michelson. If you want to come up, anyone pertaining to that, you can come up, please, and give your name for the record, and we'll get started.
Brian Mickelson, 2195 Cameron Avenue Southeast.
Right, Barry, when you're ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a 11.95 acre property that sits on Cameron Avenue northwest, or northwest of Dean Lake, and also has frontage on 20th Street. If the commission recalls, this property was rezoned in June. Let me get to myself, in August is when the county board actually rezoned it to R2A, which is a 5 acre lot minimum. This is the unplatted subdivision portion of it. The R2A district requires a 5 acre minimum, roughly 5 to 9.99 acres. Each of these lots would fall within that framework, 6.21 and 5.74. We have the plan, everything's up. We did get wetland delineation done, which are depicted on this survey. Septics have been verified, so now it's up to the commission to determine whether or not you approve of the unplatted subdivision.
Okay, thank you, Barry.
Township did approve the entirety of the concept when they reviewed this previously, so it hasn't recently been to the township, but their minutes and their response indicated from May 2023 that they approved of the rezoning and the subdivision at one meeting.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Is there anything you have to add to it?
No, I mean, that pretty much like sums it all up. You know, the wetland delineation boundary was established, and, you know, the survey for tract A and B was completed, and I'll try to answer your questions as best I can.
Okay. We'll go to the public first. Is there anyone from the public on this matter that would like to comment? Is there anyone from the public? If there's no one from the public, then we'll bring it back up here to the board. And how would the board, do you have any questions, any concerns? We were there for a site inspection. We've seen it several times. I guess, is there any other concerns or questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Ken?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve a conditional use permit for a 2-lot unplatted subdivision in accord with the survey completed by North Star Surveying, revisions dated 10/9/2024, job number 2023086, with the following conditions. Number 1, due to the size of the existing accessory structure, no other accessory structures are allowed. Number 2, any disturbance of the wetland area requires a soil water conservation district approval. Number 3, all Wright County feedlot ordinance requirements and standards must be followed.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Yes, my question, Barry, on the feedlot ordinance requirements and standards, in the past, we've put on it, a half an animal unit. Is that something that we need to add into this motion, or, because that piece of property can't handle much more than a chicken coop per se?
Well, and so that was part of the discussion I had with the feedlot administrator, and, rather than, we could make that condition a paragraph long, with all the different restrictions that may or may not apply depending upon a number of different situations, like in this case. Okay, a chicken coop. Well, there's wetland there, that's actually disturbance. How does that play, doesn't play? So we just, in this case, with it all being shoreland, we just went with just the general that they must be followed. That's going to encourage that contact with our office, say, well, what does that mean? So that's what we want to do with this one, just because of the nature of the property, being shoreland, having so much wetland on it. It's just better to have it this way, just saying, you must follow them all. If you just say, well, you must follow them, but you're allowed this, well, there might be less digging into what's actually allowed as a whole.
Okay, just wanted to
That was our
clarify.
thought process with it anyways, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Number 4 on the agenda tonight, is it Paul Shellquist?
Pete,
Peter, okay. I know we had it wrong last time, so
I got it right this
got
time.
it right this time. I'm
Cheryl,
sorry.
Cheryl got it right this time. She made the change. I'm not gonna claim anything with making it correct. That was all Cheryl.
So,
Right.
could you give your name for the record, please? And then
Thank you. Yeah, good evening. My name's Peter Shelquist.
Right, Barry, when you're ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the commission heard this on 10/10. We did a site inspection of the property, so we have been out there. I really don't have a whole lot more to add. The surveyor has provided the additional information that we had asked for, which included the shared driveway easement shown on the plat. And so the commission recalls, since both of these lots are less than 5 acres, it requires platting. And so the easement has to be shown on the plat, which is on there. And they did provide verification of the minimum width for that western lot. So we do have that.
All right, thank you, Barry. Anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Is there anyone from the public? If there's no one from the public, we'll bring it back up here. And does anyone have any concerns, comments? We were there on a site inspection. Very nice property for somebody.
Thank you.
Yeah, it meets all the requirements that we're looking at.
Plenty of coyotes out there.
Yeah, there was that.
Yeah, yes, there are.
And we walked through a deer bed.
So,
I apologize I wasn't able to make it that day. I was,
Oh, that's
I heard about, got the time you were going to be there. I heard about the preceding Friday, so I was committed, but I'm glad you had an opportunity to review.
no, we were all able to walk up and get to the bluff overlooking the river and, looked at the property and as it was staked out for us, so we knew where the lines were. So, thank you. That helped.
Very good.
So if there's
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for the applicant. Are you aware of the park dedication fees and that they're going to be required from you?
Yeah, we've had some conversations to that, so I am.
Just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Somebody ready to present a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve a conditional use permit for a 2-lot platted subdivision in accord with the record of these hearings and the preliminary plat of
Sorry,
England, is that right?
no, that's not right. Shellquist Edition.
Shellquist Shores or just Shellquist Edition?
Shellquist Edition.
Shellquist Edition completed by Auto Associates dated 9/9/2024. Job number 24-0389 with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to the filing of the final plat, the park dedication shall be paid in cash along with other fees as noted on the plat checklist. And B, a title opinion is submitted and accepted by the county attorney. 2, the commission notes that that it is designated, that's the way it should be, right? That it is designated Wild and Scenic River District, which is subject to state and county regulations governing bluffs, tree removal, and vegetation clearing. Clear cutting is prohibited in the bluff impact zones. Number 3, pedestrian access to the river must meet the requirements for stairways, lifts, and landings as described in section 155-057 E 3A. Number 4, no construction may commence until the county board has approved the final plat. 5, a permit for the change of access locations must be obtained from the Wright County Highway Department prior to the issuance of a building permit for the new lot. And 7, livestock will be not allowed on any lot. And I do have a question when we get to discussion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Dan?
As far as the county board approving the plat, have we done that before?
The county board is required, they're the final signature on every plat within the
Okay.
townships.
I know we
And
always
so-
get them here,
We
but,
get them here and we're part of the, we're usually, the chairman here is usually the last one to sign before it goes to the county board.
okay, thank you for that clarification.
Right. Do we have any other discussion? Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same way. Motion carries. Thank you.
Good luck, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, number 5 on the agenda tonight is big rig companies.
Mr. Chairman, I can just quick roll into that one. Yeah, so when we continued it from October to November, we didn't really look that close at the calendars. And the township actually hasn't met yet, so they're working through the access and turnaround issues with the township, but haven't been able to meet with the township again in their setting in order to, work through the problems and may amend the township's recommendation. My understanding is they've been in contact with the township and are working on things, but they haven't been able to present it at that level yet. And so the township's recommendation for denial still stands until that all gets completed. So they've requested continuation to December, which actually I think will allow them potentially 2 meetings with the township in between now and then. So they have requested continuation through our continuation form, have signed it. And so there's a motion here to continue it to the December 12th meeting at the applicant's request so they can continue working on the access and turnaround issues.
Okay, thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Does somebody want to present that motion?
Move to continue to the December 12th meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries. That'll move us on to Fred Mishi. If you want to come up and give your name for the record, please, and we'll get started.
Fred Mishi, Clearwater Township.
All right, Barry, when you are ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the property is roughly 28.72 acres located along Grover Avenue in Clearwater Township. It's currently zoned general agriculture and is designated in the land use plan as rural residential. The property has one entitlement, which is the existing house. The original property was 68.72 acre farmstead that contained 2 entitlements. In '93, the Board of Adjustment approved a division that split 68.72 acres into 2 parcels, each keeping an entitlement. In 1998, the Planning Commission approved a conditional use permit to operate a wholesale bakery as a home extended business in a 20 by 20 commercial building on the property. This request is to operate a commercial ag tourism winery, including a vineyard, bottle sales, and 3 events hosting 50 or less people per year. We do have kind of a layout of the vineyard area and location of the building located on the property as a whole, which is this display, and then this is more of a zoomed-in version of it. You can see the house location on the north of where it says commercial building there, and then that's the building where the bottle sales would take place. The applicant has been working with the Department of Agriculture and the state on the proper licensing for the bottle sales, as well as anything else that would take place in the building. We did get recommendation for approval from Clearwater Township, and one neighbor also recommended approval of their request.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I think that's a pretty good summation of our request. So as the picture shows, that's where the vineyard will be. We have plans to do bottle sales. I'm not sure exactly what's in front of you for testimony or for whatever.
What you see on your screen.
I'm talking language. Do they have any language which I submitted?
They have the two phases, your business
Oh,
plan.
okay.
They have that in front of them.
Okay, yeah. So as long as you have those two phases, I would say that sums it up pretty well.
Okay. One of the questions in our motion, we have either Barry or Fred could maybe answer to it. It has no alcohol consumption to be allowed on the property, but then you're going to have 3 events of 50 people or so. How do you have an event with 50 people and not have any
Right.
taste testing, or they just have to trust you, it's good?
So the license that we are applying for would be off-sale license.
Okay.
And if the sheriff shows up and people are drinking during that event,
So how do you do taste testing with?
so that's a great question. So the business plan is the first phase is we have friends who have drank our wine through as we've made it, et cetera, right? Not for sale, but they've drank it. So the initial part of our plan is to sell the wine, buy bottles through a membership, a non-fee membership where people sort of, make a promise they'll buy X number of bottles, right? And so those folks have already tasted our wine throughout the years and they know what they're going to get. And so in that plan, right, so whether we make 1,000 bottles, whether we make 2,000 bottles, we'll offer up X amount to our members. And whatever's left over then would be sold through the public part of that opening. And it's not unlike going into a liquor store and pulling a bottle of wine off the shelf where they're not offering to let you sample it. Okay. So that the bottles would have description, tasting description, the whole sommelier aspect of it, right? So this is what you are buying and you go drink it somewhere else. So the first part of the plan is more of think of it more as a bottle shop component. Then depending upon growth of the health of the overall vineyards, which then would lead to an understanding of where we are with quantity of wine, then that's where the second phase would kick in, would then potentially open up a tasting room, which would then go to the consumption on the property.
Okay.
And if I could just add, Mr. Chair, and you understand that when you move to phase 2, you're gonna have to come back here and get an amended permit, correct?
Yes.
And you're okay with that? You're good? That's your business plan? It sounds like that's what you
Yeah, it's-
anticipate doing?
Yes.
You don't want us to go there? Okay.
I didn't hear that.
You don't want us to go in that direction here today, it sounds like. You want it to be.
Well,
what we have here.
the conversation I had with one of the gentlemen in P&Z was, if I'm not ready to jump into the retail side of it, that maybe I should take a step back and just stick to the bottle sales.
Yes, it makes this hearing today much easier. So I think that's what they're trying to help you out with.
Okay. Is there any other questions before I go to the public? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this matter? Anyone from the public? All right, if there's no one from the public, we'll bring it back up here. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns on it? I guess I can help the board a little bit on it. I know Fred is about 1.5 miles from where I live. As far as for traffic going in there, Grover Avenue is a quiet road going down in. It's not a through road really to anything. I mean, it's basically a few people that live along there. Sheldon Lake is just up the road there. So, I mean, for what he's proposing and what he's asking for, I think would fit his property very well. So it'd be very unique and be an additive to Clearwater Township.
So Chairman Wall, the time then, would we go at the noon to 9 PM?
That,
What would be the hours of
So-
operation?
Yeah, I don't, that was,
Right, and so there was nothing in there, so I just put some times in there for those 3 events.
Okay.
And that's why it's highlighted in your packet, is so that you can talk about that and decide what you want. This is just numbers I quick came up with.
Okay.
They don't mean anything, I just threw them in. I figured you could talk to the applicant about what you all feel would be a sufficient set hours for the events. Does that help
Yeah,
you by doing it that way?
I like that it's highlighted so we can ask those questions. So what do you think about your events and what time would, the 3 events, what time frame are you thinking?
so the initial hours of operation for the bottle sales, we're looking at potentially noon to 4.
Okay,
And so that's a very similar aspect with the event.
okay,
There, it might, depending upon when we have, right? So this time of year with no streetlights, with no, right? So it's dark by 4, and we don't really want people on the property this time of year after dark. I would say if we're looking in June, it's lighter, longer. There's sort of a respect that we do have for our neighbors. So anything past 7 with that event would probably be a natural termination point. So people can get out of the area. We haven't gone that far as to think of those hours on that point. Our energies have been spent on how many days in a month we want to be open for the bottle sales and what those hours would be. And that's where we focus. And I was unaware of the time that was assigned to those events. So I don't have a strong opinion one way or another if the event time is 12 to 4, 12 to 7, 12 to, the concept of the events is really, if we're having a new wine release, right, that we sort of celebrate that and people can take that home and stuff, but that's the type of events we're looking at. So if you feel that there's a need to put a specific time constraint on those events, we're more than willing to accommodate that.
Mr. Chair, I have a suggestion for the time. Looking at the 3 events occurring over quite a bit of the year, I would say noon to a half hour before sunset.
I guess having been in outdoor rec and those types of things, I would like to see it probably moved up to 10 o'clock. And
Mo-
from 10 a.m. instead of being noon,
Okay,
you know,
To
10,
sunset.
because people if it's on a Saturday or something, people like to get out, go do something and,
Well, and there again, if these are, outdoor events with, friends and basically it sounds like a lot of acquaintances, bonfire could run you past dark.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of what my thought is. That's why it was kind of more that 9, 10 o'clock time frame was, well, you might have people that want to sit out past dark. You might have a little fire pit area and sit and chit chat.
Well, maybe we could just have it from 10 until,
10.
start at 10 if
10
you
to 10.
wanted to.
you have to realize, Fred, on this, doesn't mean you have to have that event from 10 to 10, but we need to put a time period that you have it in so that you're compliant. Because if all of a sudden you do it 2 hours earlier, 2 hours later, an hour, then you're out of compliance, and we don't want that. So if we would put something in there from, say, 10 to 10, so you can have a fire in the evening, you can hold your event from 4 to 10, and then you're in compliance. And, if somebody calls planning and zoning, they can say, no, they're allowed to have an event between these hours when you start. And it gives,
It's not saying you have to have it from then to then. It just
Right.
says, if you're going to have one, here's your parameters. It has to be sometime between 10 and 10.
Yeah.
and so what we're trying to do is help you so that you don't have to come back here after a complaint and say, hey, we need to extend this or amend it. So that's,
I'll take to that.
Yes.
just so you understand what we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. So if I'm early, then I'm out of compliance.
Yep,
And if I'm later, I'm out of compliance.
right.
Yes.
Yep,
If the
so
sheriff gets called at midnight, then.
you're out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat?
Barry, is there anything in our ordinance that restricts these sales to wine that is bottled from the vineyard that is on the site?
I believe that's more, the statutory language for farm wineries governs that. And so to get a farm winery license, you can't bring in outside bottled wine and sell it as part of a farm winery. So that's based on the license that he holds.
Okay.
And so, yes, there is, but not in ordinance, but in the rules governing farm wineries. That's
And we'll let those licensing officials do their job.
do their job.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Are we ready for a motion?
Number 5.
So did we agree on 10 to 10?
Yes, I think we all did.
Well, I'd like to make the motion. I don't have my glasses with me, but I'll try to read it here. I make a motion to approve an interim use permit for a commercial agricultural tourism use for a winery operation that includes a vineyard and bottle sales in accord with the plans and narrative submitted and the discussion at the hearing with the following conditions. 1, sales to be limited to 2 Saturdays per month for the months of September through April, with hours of operation for the sales limited to noon to 4 p.m. Number 2, the use shall be allowed 3 events between the months of March and January and limited to no more than 50 people per event, with hours being limited to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 3, no alcohol consumption to be allowed on the property. Number 4, parking for sales and events must be on the property. Parking on the township road is prohibited. Number 5, all properties, state and county licenses shall be obtained prior to operation commencing. Number 6, township to review in 1 year with subsequent reviews at an interval established by the township. 7, the permit shall immediately and automatically expire upon transfer, termination of any lease agreement, or change in business operations or ownership.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. And for discussion, Barry, I would like clarified number 3, because it
Yes,
has on it, no alcohol consumption to be allowed on the property. Should that say like during business hours or something like that? Because what happens if he has a family gathering?
Yes,
And
please.
has 10 or 15 people there and they break a few bottles of wine
crack
out
some wine, yeah.
and now he's got a dry piece of property?
Yeah, right.
How about
the
how about
only
a-
dry parcel in Wright County?
Due to ordinance.
Yes,
no,
please
no
rephrase.
alcohol consumption in relation to the business, the sales business or events are allowed on the property.
Okay. Would that be okay?
State that
Yeah,
again?
that's fine.
Say it again, Barry.
No alcohol consumption in relation to the bottle sales or events is allowed on the property.
So that would be just, so private hours,
Okay.
private life, I guess I would say.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the applicant, what's your opinion? Will that work for you, this amended?
Yeah, could you read that one more time? Because I don't want to be dry and then find out.
No, no alcohol consumption in relation to bottle sales and events is allowed on the property. So you
Yes.
can't sell during, you can't consume, there can't be alcohol consumption in relation to the business during the sales hours or events.
Do you want to put sales hours in there?
You already have it as a
Oh,
different
okay,
condition. It's a
okay.
different paragraph.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can still enjoy dinner with a nice glass of
Good.
wine.
I think that works. Unless you see a different,
Well, I don't know. I'm just wondering, what if Mr. Mischke here wishes to have a glass of wine out in the barn there?
You can do
During
that
those
as long as
events.
it's not associated with the bottle sales operation or an event.
yeah, I think we have that language.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to land on.
So you're good, Mr.
Yep.
Mischke? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Pat?
Yeah, I think rather than doing the months of March through January, which tracks the narrative, can we just do like per year? Because we've excluded February for largely no reason other than it's what was in your narrative saying I'm gonna hit these months. And I just, if he wants to have a sale in February, just make it per year.
The 2 Saturdays a month, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm-
And not restrict.
No, I'm talking about the events. We say
Oh.
you get 3 events between the months of March through January.
Okay.
And maybe we have a beautiful spring and you say, my goodness, it's a wonderful Valentine's Day. I want to do a Valentine's Day sale. That you would be in violation of this. So let's just make it a year if there's no reason not to.
Right. I agree with that.
Your motion, Janice. You okay with that? Making it for the full year and not excluding February?
Is that all right with you?
Yes.
Then it's okay with me.
So do we have that, Barry? Under,
Okay. We're just going to, you shall be allowed 3 events per year. Okay, I got it.
any other discussion? There's no other discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same way. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I
Best of
need
luck.
to get anything from you, gentlemen?
Nope, you'll be sent the minutes once they're approved after the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, number 7 on the agenda tonight is Jonathan Kepler.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Kapler.
All right, Barry, when you are ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is an 8.2 acre property in Victor Township along Grover Avenue Southwest. It's owned and operated currently by the Winstead Sportsman's Club, so this is the Sportsman's Club property. Currently, the property contains a kind of a storage building with a little bit of space in it for other Sportsman's Club events, and then also the public boat launch. The property is zoned R1 residential and is part of the Terra Teresa plat. That it's an old, non-conforming or pre-existing non-conforming plat. Contains a lot of the lakeshore lots up that east side of Mary Lake in Victor Township. This request is for a 2-lot platted subdivision using those R1 standards, so at least an acre in size and at least 150 feet in width along a public road. The property has had septic evaluations done. They have found appropriate septic sites for each lot to meet our standards and have buildable location for dwelling units. This is, as mentioned, a plat, so this would be a platted subdivision. The applicant has not yet met with the township, and that is gonna be taking place in their November meeting. So really what we're here for is just some discussion and kind of a first look at this plat. As usual, when applicants haven't met with township, I still encourage them to come to the meeting so we can have some discussion, let the public speak their piece if they so want. And then, ultimately, staff is recommending continuation to the December meeting to get a final determination from the township on the plat.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Anything you would like to add to that?
No, sir, that covers it well.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Anyone from the public? You have to come up here to say anything. You have to come up here and give your name for the record, please. So if you want to just have a seat. Please give your name for the record.
Rita Clark.
Okay?
I live on Lake Mary, and I got a letter. I'm the only one that could make the meeting, so I'm just here to see what he's gonna build and make sure it's going to be 2 homes, and he's not gonna turn it into like a campsite or... And does he have like access from this, just looking at it from the lake? We know there's a swampland, kind of a marshy area on the lake, and it crosses over, I think, somebody's driveway. So we just want to know what we're looking at.
Okay. And we'll try to help you out with that.
Okay.
Great.
Can I sit down?
Yeah, you can sit down.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment? If not, applicant can come back up.
For the applicant, did you indicate that they're going to be meeting on Monday with you?
Yes,
They can't.
I
That's a federal holiday. They can't meet with you.
I was wondering about that. You know,
Yeah.
Veterans Day.
Yeah, they can't do that. So we're gonna have to call them and let them know they have to reschedule their hearing.
Okay.
So that's not a date that they can have a meeting on.
Well, when I was talking to them, you know, I was pitching, we can maybe meet the week before because of elections or something like that, you know, but they said, no, the 11th.
Yeah. So I think you might want to call them tomorrow or email them. Unfortunately, they're one of the few townships that don't have a webpage, so I can't confirm their dates here as I'm
Okay.
sitting here.
Yeah, I have
So-
their contact info.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
reach
I'd
out
get a
to
hold of them and remind them it's Veterans Day and they can't meet on Monday.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Chairman, well, I did tell Commissioner Ketchmark that he might want to tell the township they're meeting on a date that they can't be. I
happens-
saw that right away.
yeah. This happens from time to time. The other good one is caucus night, because it's usually on some random Tuesday in the middle of February every other year. Those are the other fun ones we get.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they do meet, according to our information, they do meet the second Monday, which would be the 11th, so.
Okay.
And we'll also email them and remind them of their state
Okay,
and
good.
federal obligations.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Does the board have any concerns or questions here before?
Chairman, well, I think this would be a good one, especially because we're waiting for the townships. I think this would be a good one for a site visit, just because I'm really curious about what that lake looks like, what the lot looks like, and then, you know, just some general, like, questions about the...
So I can give a little bit more background too. So we've been working with the Sportsman's Club for probably 3 or 4 years on what to do with this property. The Sportsman's Club really wants to keep that northern lot, which also contains what is the only public access on the Lake Mary. Unfortunately, by our ordinance standards, we cannot create just a restricted lot in an R1 district or in really any district unless it's a large agricultural piece. And so in this case, I do believe, if Mr. Kapler can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Sportsman's Club does intend to keep that northern lot and operate or allow that access to remain. But in order to meet our zoning standards, they had to prove 2 type 1 sites and have buildable area for a dwelling, which they both have. So just a little more background on it. That's kind of where this one comes from. It's kind of it's been an interesting thing. We've had a couple of different prospective buyers come in and kind of pitch ideas, which we couldn't even take applications for. So this is one we could.
Is it because is the reason that they're selling it just because they just don't need they're not using the land at all?
Other than the access, and then there's, you know, that access piece. If somebody else bought it as a buildable lot, other than the Sportsman's Club, they have no obligation to keep the access open.
Oh.
So I do know that's a very touchy subject with the Sportsman's Club.
Okay.
So there's no public access to that lake? That's the only access for the public to use, and I would imagine even the residents to launch their boats.
Correct.
And that's why it's a sensitive subject, I imagine.
I imagine.
Okay, any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to continue?
I would make that motion, Mr. Chair, to continue the item to December 12th meeting to allow time for township review.
Right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Janice?
Would we be going on a site inspection too?
That was not in. the
That was
motion?
not in the motion. I was going to bring that up during discussion. Should it be in the motion, or is that a separate motion?
I
I
think it
was
should.
wondering the same thing.
Well,
Should it
a
be
lot
in
of
the
times
motion?
it's within the motion.
Okay, very well. We don't have a date picked. You need a
Well, that'll be
date?
at the end of the meeting. But you can-
Amend it with including a site visit?
Okay, I would amend my motion to include a site meeting prior to the December 12th meeting.
And I will second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded and amended. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way? Motion carries. At the end of the meeting tonight, we will set a time and a date as to when we'll come out and look at the property. You don't have to stay if you don't want. You can call into the office tomorrow, and they can tell you the day and the time that we'll be out to look at the property.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
And if there's anything you can stake out or kind of, some of the sewer sites and that, if you could, have some stakes, at least in the area where the sites are and where the splits are a little bit, would be helpful.
It was recently surveyed for the septic sites, and so there's
There's
still markers out there.
Still
you know,
remaining
yes.
markers?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's very helpful for us.
Yeah, and I think Paul Otto had a few markings out there too for property lines.
Okay, that'll be helpful then.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would note too that since the township cannot meet on November 11th, then if they meet on the, what is it, Barry, the second Tuesday or first?
Second Monday.
Or second Monday, okay, then that means, from my reckoning then, that the township will meet December 9th, which is just a matter of days prior to
Not
our,
necessarily so.
planning and zoning meeting. And should that date be missed for some reason, we may have to continue it, I'm assuming here, to the January meeting, so timing is critical. That-
Well, in most of those instances where the township like this have something on a holiday, they'll schedule the meeting for Tuesday.
Yeah,
Oh, they will?
they will.
Very well. Never mind.
I'm
Right,
hoping they
Dan?
will, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, but. If I may, Mr. Chair,
Dan?
in this case, they would require a 3-day posting in order to change that date. So they would not be meeting on that Tuesday, but my guess is they would be meeting before their December meeting to take care of all their bills and everything that has to be paid in that month. So they're going to do it one way or
Well,
another.
if we notify them tomorrow and they get the posting, they could do Tuesday.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, it has to be 3
Legal
days
people.
prior to the meeting, and they have to be business days.
Okay. All right. I think we got it all straight now. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
That's it.
That's it.
Right, thank you.
We're good. We're good till next round. All right, number 8 on the agenda tonight is the Knife River Corporation, North Central. You want to come up and give your name for the record, and we will get started.
Holly Renault with Knife River.
All right. Barry, when you are ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is commonly referred to as the Elmore Pit on Highway 25. This request is for a 5-year extension to continue with the mining, processing of aggregate and recycled products, stockpiling and storage of processed materials, and truck hauling for projects in the area. As noted, this is an extension. The previous permit does expire, and so this is an extension of this permit, as noted, requested for 5 years. It was originally granted in 1987 and has been renewed a few times since then. Just in driving by the pit as often as I do notice that there was an amount of time there where not a whole lot was taking place, and now they're actually back in there moving some dirt around and getting some material out of there. We did receive a response from Rockford Township where they're actually requesting or had approved the renewal of the pit for 3 years instead of the 5 years requested. We did not get any other written comment on this request.
Stand correction, Buffalo Township. You said Rockford.
Did I say, okay, sorry, Buffalo.
I got
I was like-
confused there for a minute.
Okay, I was
like,
confused
what?
too.
I read Buffalo.
You got me, you got me there.
and I
Okay.
drive by it too.
So. Anything else, Barry?
Nope.
Anything you want to add, Holly?
I'm just basically here if you guys have any questions like usual. I mean, like Barry stated, yeah, we weren't in there for a while, and then now within this year, things were happening. Again, everything's just based on if we get the right bid for the right jobs and that type of stuff, so. And now I'm aware of the 3 years with the township, so again, if any of the board members have questions.
Okay.
Commissioner Moll,
Yep.
I'm assuming the amount of traffic that you have has something to do with 94. Did you get that contract? I mean, are we gonna see a lot of trucks through the I-94 GAP project?
Not that I'm aware of that we have anything to do with that.
Okay.
I can't say that maybe next year we will. At this time, no, it's more probably local jobs in the area that we've been doing. I know we were, Knife River is kind of successful with a lot of Wright County work and like just, like parking lots and that type of stuff in the area, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's enough material left in there for a big highway project.
Yeah, no, yeah. So.
Okay.
I think, is there anyone from the public that would like to comment? Holly, if you'd like to have a seat, I've got
Yeah.
a couple people that would like to speak. If you give your name, please, for the record.
My name is Julie Surma, and I live at 2426 59th Street Northeast, which is just 3 up from the pit. And as you say, for many years, we've lived there since 2007. I have no complaints. I mean, we hear things every once in a while, and I understand, you buy a house next to a gravel pit, you're gonna have some noise, but boy, this last summer, it was very, very loud. I work from home and I've had to shut my windows, and it's just, it's getting a little bit too much. It's all day. And I think they're supposed to stop at 5, but it does not stop at 5. It goes until dark every day. And I'm wondering about the 3 years that the township approved and why now all of a sudden it's 5 here? And why go from a conditional permit to an interim permit? I guess I don't understand the difference. Yeah, and why extending it to 5 years? And who do we address with our, if we see that they're going further, longer than they should, or I don't know, and especially in 5 years, I mean, are we gonna have anybody to come to talk to about all of this?
With the 5 years, it's what Barry recommended, that's kind of our length. He didn't understand that the township was only asking probably for 3.
Yeah.
So that's, something he's brought up now is the 3. And as far as if there's problems or concerns, you need to call the Office of Planning and Zoning. Talk to Barry or one of the staff people at Planning and Zoning and let them know so that they can come out and confirm with what they're being told that they're going too long. I mean, they have staff members, when they receive a complaint, they will come out and, confirm
Okay,
what's going on.
okay,
So I mean, that would be your first step, would be call the office,
of planning and zoning,
And,
okay.
and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just talk to the people, in charge of the supervisor at Knife River and say, hey, this is going on. And in the past, Knife River, we've always had, up until today, very good compliance. I mean, with tar plants, different plants,
Yeah,
they've always worked very well with the county, is my knowledge.
Yeah, we have with all of our pit operators, we have their contact information. For us, the after hours hauling is a little bit different because there's nobody in the office to take the call. And so usually what our staff will do is reach out to the operator and say, hey, we got this complaint, please make sure that, your drivers and your people in the pit are abiding by the timeframes. Ordinance allows 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that's when the cutoff is, it's 7 p.m.
oh, I thought it was 5.
Nope, it's 7 to 7. And as far as the time frame, the 5 years is what the applicant requested.
Okay.
We didn't set that time frame. We allow them to do up to 10 years. They're requesting 5. The township is requesting or approved only 3. This commission has broad discretion to approve the 5 or the 3 that the township, it's going to be up to them. As far as the conversion, we no longer have mining as a conditional use permit. It's an interim use permit, which gives us a little bit more latitude on putting conditions on starting and stopping of the operation. And so we can't, it has to move from a conditional to an interim in order to request the extension. We can't give an extension to a conditional use permit. We can only do it through the conversion of conditional to interim, because conditional use permits no longer allow, gravel mining is no longer a conditional use permit. So that's why it's interim now instead of conditional. So I think I got all your questions.
Anything else?
You have to step up if you're going to speak.
Give your name for the record, please.
John Davis, 2426 59th Street Northeast. I guess I do have a question. It was brought up that there's really not a lot of gravel there for another big project. And so my question is, why would Knife River want to extend it for 5 years? What other plans might they have for that parcel that they would want it longer than it seems like there's useful gravel there?
A lot of times when they want it extended from 3 or 5 years, is they don't know what contracts they're gonna get. If you get a good contract, it could be all done in 1 year. But if they don't get the contract, somebody else gets the contract, then they don't have anything going out of there at all for this next year, and then maybe the next year they get a contract. So we've gone through many, many gravel pit permits, and that's what they'll all tell us, is that we don't know what contracts we're gonna get. And like Commissioner Holland was asking, is it the I-94? Well, if it was the I-94, it might deplete it in 1 year, but she made the statement, no, we're doing more local stuff, and it takes time then to deplete the pit.
Okay, thanks for that
That
explanation.
answers your question there.
Yep. The other thing is about the ending time at 7. Does that mean all operations have to be done by 7? Because often we hear those backup beepers going on longer than that. And so I guess what's the definition of those hours? That means they're done, they're out of the gravel pit, and there should be no more noise?
Very
How does that get
All
defined?
operations, when we made that ordinance amendment, we defined it as pretty much any operation has to cease at 7.
The only thing in the request that's going past 7 PM is maintenance. So unless they're backing up some equipment for maintenance purposes, that'd be it. But there's
Okay,
no
that's-
hauling, there's no mining or processing after 7 PM. And if I
That's
could,
what we,
yeah, if I could on your 3-year comment, what is currently in the proposed motion is that mining is complete by December 1, 2027. That is 3 years. And then they're stockpiling for 1 year after that, so they can mine it and then have the big piles, and then dwindle down the pile. And then the last item that brings it to 5 years is reclamation. That is bringing in new dirt and leveling it out and making it ready, so that basically restoring it. So
Okay.
you do have 3 years of mining, 1 year of stockpiling after the 3 years, and then we have to give them some time for reclamation, so they can correct everything on the property,
okay.
if that
You-
helps.
Yes, it does. Your comment on the maintenance, I guess that's what we hear then, is those backup beepers going on into the evening.
Holly can maybe talk about it, but
could just address.
you'll be after they're done. Yep.
I'll answer that one.
She'll answer that question then. for you.
Okay. I think
That
you
helps.
answered all my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And the other gal there, please, if you want to come up, give your name for the record, please.
My name is Ann Newman, and I'm actually just here following up on Township. I'm the newest member from the Buffalo Township Board that joined in April. The reason why we made the decision to extend it for 3 years, made the 3-year recommendation, was because we just asked the question of how much aggregate is left. And they said a year and a half. Well, if I went into my job and said, hey guys, your assignment that you gave me is gonna take me an hour and a half, but I'm gonna take 3/4 of my day to do it, I don't really have a lot of motivation to get that done. So I myself personally lived against that gravel pit for 9 years. And had no problems with it, but approximately 10 years.
Oh,
sorry.
Address us.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
She's listening, but
Yeah,
address us,
so
please.
I lived against that gravel pit for 9 years. And approximately 10 years ago, they came here and they asked for it to reopen after being closed for a number of years. When the gravel pit, they didn't start moving the aggregate, and I understand that it's based off of like contracts and like what you get, but they really didn't start doing that. It's Knife River. They've got lots of open gravel pits. And they started moving rock again in there in the last 6 months of that 5 years. And then they really worked the ground for the next 5. Great, really happy for them. But now that we're into like the last bit, let's talk about a gravel pit that's been essentially open for 40 years. So if we approve it for the next 30 years, or the 3 years, like we suggested from Township, that's a 40-year amount of time. I know that there's other gravel pits that have been coming up in the last couple of years that they want to open. But how do we move on to the next project if we're not closing up other projects or giving the companies or the motivation to close those? To address the issues of the maintenance after 7 p.m., they were stated that maintenance is done until 10 p.m. at night. That included generators and cleaning machinery. So there has been, I believe, 4 complaints that were made since July about the gravel pit and the hours that they were working. I tried to find a phone number. Being new to the board, I didn't have all of the resources or who to call about said complaints. So I just kind of took them upon myself, wrote them down, and then tried to direct them to a 1-800 number. I didn't know who to call. I can kind of understand. I don't live in that neighborhood anymore. I'm not directly like hearing what's happening in there, but now being a part of Township, let's close it up, move on. Let's not be an open gravel pit in Buffalo Township. So I'm just here to follow up.
Okay,
And, okay,
thank you.
yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Gentleman there in the back.
Rob Schultz, 2459 58th Street Northeast. I just have a couple questions for y'all. Is with the new ordinance addition or redo that you guys did a couple months ago, years ago, does this interim permit, I know it went from a CUP to the interim, will it comply with like the whole 155.100 code and all the requirements for plans, permits, reclamation plans, screening, fencing that is in that updated code? I guess that's my really main question is that?
We would not accept an application if it didn't meet those requirements.
And is that public information?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And do we go to planning and zone? Oh, there it is right there. Okay. I just want to make sure I live in the neighborhood, you know, the east side, pretty steep down as far as like a fencing side of things is a concern with a lot of younger kids moved into the neighborhood now. And the screening in that kind of central west side, they took a lot of trees down, the natural screening that was there against 25. And so just wondering on compliance to, you know, fill in those gaps along. So I don't know if you guys have had a site visit there, but that red area has had a significant amount of trees removed, and even along the right-of-way north of that 25 right-of-way. So just making sure it complies, you know, to the full extent of that permit, and then the reclamation plan as well to ensure that, you know, with the 3 years of work, 1 year of stockpiling, and then the 1 year of reclamation that, you know, and I guess I can't address her, but is that like the expected closeout of that permit? Is that 5 years? I think that'd be a clarifying thing too.
It would be because that's when the permit will run out, and then they would have to come back here and do this all over again.
Okay. So, but from the reclamation side of things, like how does that look as far as if they just reapply for their permit, they don't have to start on that reclamation plan?
Does the plan vary state as the pit is used? Some of them are where they reclaim it as the pit is used. Is that part of this one?
So say that again.
Some of the reclamation is done as the pit is used. You know, they'll
Yes.
begin reclamation, and that would be part of this pit also.
That's what it, what that does, is what it appears with the reclamation plan. I mean, I believe some of the slope has already been worked on.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I just, you know, and going back, if you can go back to the other image, please. So this is the footprint that they're applying for, is that correct? Not the rest of the parcel that's owned by them, that has had mining work on it, that has soil and clay and fill all scattered apart. That's not a part of the reclamation part eventually here? It would be, or?
But what we're seeing in front of us is what they're applying for and what they're asking for right now, under this permit. Or extension, I guess it would be an extension.
Okay, I'm just trying to see the,
Mr. Chair, was your question whether there's going to be reclamation activities yet to take place over the entirety of the property, even though the mining is only a portion of the property?
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know the answer to it, but
I guess, Barry, how much of it has been reclaimed on the outer edges?
Well, looking at this, which are the existing conditions, it looks like primarily the entire east line, probably a significant portion, or at least a portion of that northeast corner as well. You know, they're actively mining kind of on that entire west side. As you can see, I mean, this was from 2017. I know there's been stockpiling in there, which might overlap in some areas. And then, you know, the reclamation plan. So if you look at the topography for it, what's pretty much left for the reclamation is going to be mid-property west, which is the area that they're actively using right at the moment.
This topo isn't accurate though. Like this is, you know, right there, that's your existing topo.
Yep.
And so like their reclamation plan would go to that one where it's all flattened out. I guess that's what I'm confused on, because like that, you said the eastern side of that has been like reclaimed or is cleaned up, where it's not. It's undulated with, you know, lack of the topsoil 4 inches that you have required in your permit there. But my just question is, yeah, is like, when's the rest of this gonna get reclaimed in the greater picture of the whole project?
Well, right, and that comes at the end. So the way it was permitted with the last extension, which was in 2020, is the mining is to be completed by a date. We extended that date 3 years in accord with what the township has approved. So we didn't do it 5, we did it 3, and then we did a stockpiling may remain until a certain date, and then reclamation needs to be completed by another date. So in essence, it's 4.5 years of until full reclamation is required to be completed. And so in this case, well, yeah, they haven't completed the reclamation. They're not likely going to put 4 inches topsoil over the bottom of that pit until that's going to be the last thing they do.
I understand that. I'm just asking for, and it's not, I guess, a part of this permit from the way it sounds, but the rest of the parcel that hasn't been touched in 20 years, as some folks here have lived here for that long, that those areas just haven't been reclaimed. And I'm just wondering with your guys' interim use permit, that, you know, what is the plan to have that aesthetically pleasing, you know, for the neighborhood and residential, but also to make sure that they're actually incentivized to get that area reclaimed into a spot where, you know, it's effective for, you know, your guys' interim use permit. So that's all I have, you know, just understanding that it's gonna abide by the 155, 100, you know, is a big thing. If I can get the public record of this information, that'd be great. But yeah, if you guys haven't done a site visit, I'm sure you have out there, but just understanding the amount of trees that have been removed to date, you know, against the, not against, but, you know, have that as a factor for your landscape screening, you know, care in the reclamation side of things, because it's just proximity to neighborhoods, groundwater, all that kind of stuff is very important for the residents of that area. So thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, contact Josh in our office tomorrow and he'll get you a copy of the plans.
Last name?
Butterus.
If you want to make it quickly.
Yes.
Because
I guess 2 quick points to consider. As far as the maintenance and the noise that goes on beyond 7, would the board consider amending the motion that all operations including maintenance, be done by 7 PM. I think that would be a fair compromise for the neighborhood who was, again, had to live with this noise for many, many years. And then secondly, on the 3-year extension and then the year of stockpiling and the year of reclamation. So when the 3 years is up, if Knife River comes back and asks to extend it, does that just put off and you grant the extension, does that just put off the stockpiling and the reclamation that much farther?
Correct. Until.
Well, potentially, that's going to be up to the commission. They'll have to evaluate that if that does occur. So we can't speak to guarantees on that kind of thing. It's going to be depend upon a number of different factors, including what the applicant applies for and what the commission's willing to grant them. They could actually come in and ask for that extension, and the commission could say, no, finish it. Here's the date you have to finish it. You just don't know until the application's actually made. So I don't think, the question asked, the type of answer that it's asking, I don't think we can really give. Potentially, but no guarantees.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on that.
Yeah.
And again, just to repeat, if you would consider having all operations done by 7 PM, again, I think that would be a very fair ask for the neighborhood. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. I don't think there's anybody else in the public to speak, so Holly, if you want to come back up, and if you want to have any rebuttal to some of the things that were brought up.
First of all, like the maintenance thing, yeah, we're requesting again 7 to 10. That would include, small use of generators. Like a lot of our maintenance after hours is like, we have like Ziegler, Caterpillar come in and they'll do like oil changes. And for requirement of that, you need to warm the equipment up and that type of stuff if it's been sitting, or they have to check, gauges, valves, that type of stuff as well. When with daylight savings time, or even like earlier mornings, per OSHA, our loaders, the backup alarms go off when the lights are turned on. So then we have the strobe light. So that was just something to make aware of. And then in regards to the neighboring gentleman that was concerned about the trees that got cut, that's the area that we're mining. We really can't mine under the trees. So we needed to, cut those out so we can get into that material. And then in regards to reclamation, kind of the northwestern corner heading to the east. That part is reclaimed, and basically what our reclamation is we get all the material moved out, and then the sloping happens, and then it'll be seeded or planted, depending on what, Knife River, we plan on doing, if we plan on renting it to a local farmer or like that. So otherwise, does anybody else have any other questions or?
Mr. Chair.
Ken?
Ma'am, the maintenance aspect of the operation, now that is restricted solely to the equipment that is currently used on that property.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is that you don't bring in other equipment from nearby pits to have it maintained?
No, it would be the crushing, processing, say there needed to be some maintenance done on like a stacking conveyor.
Right.
It is the equipment on site.
Just solely
Yep.
restricted to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
A majority of it, like I stated, it's mostly our, the loaders that are getting worked on. Maybe they're getting new cutting edges.
Right.
Which would require, impact wrench with the use of the small generator.
Now, one more, if I may, Mr. Chair. With the advent of, let's say, darkness earlier in the evening, do you go into the darker hours with your operation, mining and
If
such?
we're allowed to mine till 7, yes.
So you do?
Yep,
dark
and then they'll
mining
bring in light
operation.
units if need be, and then they'll aim it towards the equipment downwards.
Okay, so you use full extent of the hours?
Yeah, because our construction season's limited.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Do you,
Dennis?
could I ask a question? Do you repair things every night?
It's just like everybody owning a car. I can't predict it. If they have a breakdown, they're shut down for so long, then it might be a major breakdown till 10, and then they need to stop and they can't start back up till 7. So it's kind of similar to our cars. Like all of a sudden, I mean, we're going, all of a sudden we get a tire, you know, we got a nail in our tire. Well, if that happens, you know, 9 o'clock at night, what tire shop's open? So I mean, and you have AAA, but we don't really have AAA, we have Ziegler's. So, I mean, I really can't tell you that every night they do it. I mean, some nights they might, some nights they might not. It all depends on how the day goes and how they, yeah.
And it's something that you have to have it for the next day in order to do your work.
Right, because yeah, the longer the hours we can work, the shorter we can get out of there again. Because we do have other projects in the area that we need to get to.
And I have one more question. The area on the screen looks gray, that's been reclaimed, is that so?
A portion of it has. It's hard because like when we do the maps, the county, like we don't have the access to the newer aerials at that time when we applied. So we can't get updated aerials. So I mean, that's kind of our, you know, we have to probably look into something better, but it's not always offered for us through Google Earth and stuff. Not everything is always updated.
And so when you finish with that area that's red, because I'm a little confused too, would you be moving out into that gray area then to seed and to take care of that?
If everything is completed, yes, like the stockpiles are moved, yes, everything will be.
So at the end of 5 years, the plan would be to have that.
If at that time we are at that point, I can't guarantee it.
But I mean, this area here that's in gray, you've pretty much decided that that's used up.
Yeah, it's called what we consider the pit floor. So that's where we stockpile our material. Yep.
So
we place the equipment because we can't just. I mean, the red area in the mining map, that's where we're pulling the material from. So we need a staging area as well for the equipment to sit. So, I mean, otherwise we're limited down to no room to do anything.
Okay. And so the yellow, the dark area, or the plain area of yellow, that is your processing area then, it says here on our screen.
Yep.
And then the stockpiling areas to the north then.
Yeah, and then it kind of depends too on which way we can set up as well.
Okay.
I mean, we're not always gonna set there all the time. We try to make it so we can, you know, have our stockpiles serve as, you know, the buffering.
And so where the gray is now, it's full of gravel, piles of gravel.
Yep.
So that's why it doesn't have a finished look to it now, probably.
Right, because yeah, they probably have various little piles that eventually will be removed or taken care of when we get to the point of reclamation.
Okay, and the reclamation would be then at the end of 3 years, it would start.
I can't guarantee that, but yes.
That's-
If everything goes right, yes, it would be. But if we get to the point where I need to come back and renew the app, then we'll be back where we are in the 5 years, or the 3 years, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I don't want to repeat what Jan was just doing, but my color blindness is making me struggle with gray and red and all these things. When I look at the map that's up here, if I generally think of like the east half of the property, which looks to me like it has vegetation on it, I just want to understand what the company views as reclaimed or not already. The stuff that has the vegetation that is not further disturbed by the processing area, you all consider that reclaimed in its present state?
Well, we'd have to have a pasture mix. I mean, I don't know exactly what the vegetation is. I can't promise you that we wouldn't go in there and like stockpile material.
No, I'm not asking about what you might do in that area.
For
but as it
the
sits-
ending result, are you asking?
As it sits right now, if you
Yep.
didn't further disturb it, do you consider it reclaimed?
The northwestern slope, like along the northern line, and then your northwest, yep, and then you follow that. That's reclaimed. That's sloped. And then the other areas that looks, I mean, we would still have to add, we'd have to put a pasture mix in there, and or if we'd have a farmer come in and farm the land.
but not a lot of plans for leveling the areas. And what I'm getting at, part of this is in our motion, we've got a reclamation bond that's simple math, and we have 15 acres assigned to it, and this property is larger than 15 acres. We have questions about how much reclamation has been done to date, if there's more to do. And so I'm just trying to get some clarity on whether the rest of that, like where the cursor is now, is that going to be subject to additional reclamation efforts,
Yes.
either under the ordinance or
Yes.
or your plans?
For the ordinance, yes, we have to. Before our bond can get released, the the county needs to release it.
Fine, then what I'm struggling with in the motion is
The
we
amount.
have it tied to 15 acres, and the area, if Knife River is saying we're gonna be reclaiming up there, that's outside of the 15-acre area, and I'm not a huge fan of giant bonds for unnecessary reasons, but that's not aligning to me.
Yeah, we kind of did that based on open area of the pit is what that's based on. So our staff went and kind of figured out and using Beacon in the aerials that there's 15 open acres left. So in situations like this where we get these long-standing pits, that's always the question. So we have vegetation that's already reestablished. Do you want to, rip a pit that a portion of it is kind of reclaimed itself to put in 4 inches of black dirt so you can farm it? That's always the question.
Have you studied, and I don't know the history of this one, but it sounds a lot like all the pits, which is a series of 3 or 5 or 10-year permits that somehow in the end equal up to 40, 50-year-long pits. Has the office made a determination that any part of this property has been reclaimed already?
No. No, we have
So
not.
I go back, what is the obligation? Yeah, I mean, how does that work, Barry? If we're just gonna apply the bond to an open area under permit 1, and then they come along and they get an extension, or they get permit 2, and we have a different open area, and we have this bond that was related to 1, and now we have a new bond on permit 2 that is related only to the open area here. It seems to me that we're never actually ensuring that the reclamation happens as to those areas that are partially mined, or those portions of the property that are mined in any of the first series of permits.
Yes. I completely understand where you're coming from. The actual ordinance reads permitted acreage. This one, if this were a newly open pit and they're permitting for the entirety of the acreage, it definitely would read a lot different. This pit is a lot older, and from what our staff could tell, we actually don't believe we actually have a bond for this pit at all. And so we're kind of working from a little bit from behind, so that's when, like I said, staff looked at it and did a calculation on it, and this is what his suggestion was, and I says that actually seems like, based on age of pit, not unreasonable, but it's up to the commission. This is just a suggested condition. If you want to increase the acreage that we're applying the bond to, we're not going to be opposed to it.
I'm not so much worried about matching up the acreage with the bond amount that we're going to set. Knife River's a fairly well-known and good actor, I think, in our experience for gravel pit operators. The bond is sort of the secondary issue. What can we expect, or what do our statutes require, or ordinances, excuse me, or what do we need to do if this is the last permit to say this portion or all of the property must be reclaimed as a condition of receiving this IUP? Like, do our ordinances already address what's going to happen enough?
I think the ordinances address what's going to happen enough. In this case, they're not proposing to change their reclamation plan. And so the reclamation plan that they had submitted, at least with their last update in 2020, is the same as this. And from the one before that, it looks to be the same. So the reclamation plan for this pit is the same, fairly consistent all the way through, which is what we see in this. And from what I can tell, actual complete reclamation, yeah, that northwest corner has all been reclaimed. So basically you have the pit floor that's left and maybe a little bit along the eastern boundaries, it's more cleanup. But then it also gets into, well, again, I've always struggled with older pits when the pits have kind of reclaimed themselves. It's, you know, what do we do with those? To me, I have a bias as an outdoorsman. Okay, I'm going to state that right out, where if a pit has kind of reclaimed itself and turned itself into its own natural habitat, I would hate to see the mining company go in there and rip all of that out just to put on 4 inches of black dirt for a farmer to farm a crop of corn that on a wet year might get 150 or 200 bushel an acre, you know, just for the fact that, well, it's supposed to be returned back to agriculture. That's always been weird. And we've given a little bit more leeway in the ordinance when we adopted it as far as those types of reclamations. It doesn't necessarily have to go all the way back to, well, farmable land or what it was before. It just has to be, you know, within something that the planning commission finds acceptable. So there again, how it gets reclaimed, this is what they have. Is that something where I'm gonna run out there with a ruler and make sure they got 4 inches of topsoil over every spot in the location? They have this, and as long as the topography meets it, I guess I'm.
Are they obligated to put 4 inches of topsoil on? We've had ordinance changes over time. If the mining activity took place on that eastern half of the property without a 4-inch topsoil or otherwise, you know, the slopes may have been different. As long as it sits in compliance with those old conditions today, we're not going to make them go back and rip up the property to restore it to the newer standards, right?
Right. No, I would not.
So we would expect in this circumstance then, to the gentleman's question, that the eastern half of the property, it may get some changes. You may decide to do something more with it, but we're not obligating the company to do anything further with respect to the eastern half. The only thing that we're obligating the company to do is to restore those currently disturbed areas and put them into compliance with the current standards.
Yeah, Greg just pulled up the ordinance, so just so we can just jump back to that just real quick. Unless otherwise stated, the planning commission, by the planning commission, a minimum of 4 inches of clean, uncontaminated topsoil shall be placed on the final graded and rehabilitated area. So unless otherwise stated. The peaks and depressions of the area shall be graded and backfilled to a surface which will result in gently rolling topography in substantial conformity to the land area immediately surrounding, and which will minimize erosion due to rainfall. No finished slope shall exceed 25% in grade. So based on this, 25% in grade, they got that. So unless otherwise stated, so in this case, if the planning commission so desires to state, you know, we could consider potentially that eastern half, and actually I like that better. You know, what does the planning commission think of that as the reclamation? So again, I can nearly guarantee there's not 4 inches of topsoil over that eastern half. But if you're fine with it, then we're just looking at that eastern half, roughly half, which is about 15 acres.
I feel like we're trying to answer a question that we don't have all the variables to. As a general matter, if we look at the eastern half today so that we can try and understand what the expectations are as to what's going to happen out there, it seems to me that going back and ripping that up, making it a requirement that we rip it up and put 4 inches of topsoil is guaranteeing that we'll get more environmental degradation than if we just let it be. And so if that's okay, I think we should at least say, so that people understand, there's not going to be requirements to do more there. There's going to be requirements, the 4 inches of topsoil or something. I mean, it seems to me we should talk about what we're actually requiring from reclamation as part of this for the area that's open now and subject to further reclamation.
Yeah, I think a great idea.
May-
Let's have
may
the
I-
discussion.
Adding on to what you're saying, and it's November right now, so I don't think they're getting ready for the construction season in December or January. We have a site inspection already. I would like to actually get out into that pit and look at it, because with what you're saying, I mean, if the reclamation doesn't meet our standard, say on that east side, because a lot of times I've seen these older pits, and they've got their berms, you know, they push their berms up when they open up a pit, and it's been 30, 40 years, you know, since it's been opened up, and you have mature trees there. According to our ordinance, other than interpretation by the administrator, technically that berm has got to come down, so all of those trees would come down so that it could be, you know, reclaimed properly. And I think that would be a travesty, because you've already got a filter with all the trees in their backyards. So I would suggest in what you're talking about, you know, not disturbing the eastern portion, even the floor, exactly what is out there. I mean, you can see in the pictures, there's some trees already on the floor of that. Should we be saying that, well, they're only gonna be permitting the western half, you know, the active portion of the pit, and we would consider the eastern half reclaimed and closed? But do we need to go out there as a commission and look at that, so we don't require them to add 4 inches? If we go out there and there's piles and it looks terrible, maybe it's a situation where we're gonna tell them, you need to clean it up. You know, even if it is a lot of scrubby brush and junk out there.
Yeah. When does the current CUP expire? They got it in 20, it's 4 years long. Is it the end of December?
Last Friday.
But are you working
That
out
was for
there now?
that was for mining. Stockpiling is a year from then, and then full reclamation was July 1st of what would have been 2026.
So are you mining today?
Not that I'm aware of. We shouldn't
Okay,
be.
so I mean, it
Yeah.
shouldn't hurt. I mean, they're allowed to stockpile yet,
There may
pick
be
that
some
up.
hauling going on,
but that's coming out of the stockpile.
piling.
So I mean, they're still in
They're still- they're-
compliance.
Right, they still have an active CUP. I mean, I think this is one of those rare cases where I would like to attend and look at it.
Whoa, this is the big one.
He's actually going to make a site
It
inspection?
might come. Because I do think this is one where I'd like to see what the current altered natural state of it is, to determine whether we should tell them, don't put a bond on that portion of it and don't touch it.
Yeah, and that's why I guess I'm suggesting, I think we need to go out and look at it as a commission to see where we wanna, if we wanna go down that road. So, any other discussion, or do we have a motion to continue for a site inspection?
I make a motion to continue to the December 12th meeting and set it on for a site inspection.
Right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries. So, same thing, we'll set the site inspection at the end of the meeting. You can just call into the office,
I'll
find out
talk,
when
yeah,
that
I'm
is.
sure Scott will reach out to me,
Yep.
so. Yep.
Give them a
I'll
holler
make sure
and,
Scott does.
Yeah. Thanks.
and we can go from there. And if there's anything you can point out or any,
Yep.
you know, have anything marked
Yep.
for us,
Yep.
be helpful. All right?
Thank you.
And as far as the public, there won't be any other notices or anything like that. I mean, the continuance and stuff was all announced now, so. And also, site inspection, it is public, but we only go out there to look, and there's no decisions made, there's no testimony made, because it's not on the record, but public is allowed.
Can I just?
Yep.
Per MSHA.
Can you come to the microphone, just so it
You
gets on
have
record?
to allow the public pursuant to Minnesota open meeting law. There is no getting around the Minnesota open meeting law. You have to allolow the public on site.
No, I'm not saying
Okay,
that.
okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
No.
that's fine, go
Wow.
ahead. That's okay.
I'm just stating that per our MSHA, that they're required to wear steel toe reflect, like, we'll provide the stuff, so I need a count
Sure.
of who wants to come.
Okay.
Do we need
And
that
I
if
mean,
we're
if-
outside of an active work area? Like,
I mean, if you get out and you step outside the pit, you need steel toe on, you need our PPE. You need a reflective vest and all that type of stuff. We can't just let anybody go walk around.
What do you consider the active pit?
right, that's what I'm saying, is if
Like if
we
they
can
drive
walk.
It's an
around,
active mine per
if they
MSHA.
drive the entire property.
Well, if they drive it, no problem.
But I mean, if they want to get up and walk the eastern slope.
That's an active mine.
Okay, so,
I mean, we're willing to provide the stuff. I just need a count. And we're not,
do you have
yeah,
covers that go over normal shoes?
we can make it happen.
I don't know if you have them in the
I can see if we have something.
because I mean, you have
I know,
6 to 7 right here.
but I know when we went to the Nectarborn pit, they provided us with reflective and all that,
Vest,
but we
yep.
didn't do anything about the shoes.
Yeah. We need to, I mean, we can give you, yeah, I'm sure we can do like over the shoe. I mean, I'll talk to our safety. I'll make it work is the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I
as
just
far as-
need to know numbers is
I would plan
what I'm
10.
asking.
I would plan 10 plus staff, 11, plan 12.
Don't need me, I got all my stuff.
Okay.
Plan 10 people, because you have at least 7 here. 3 people commented.
Okay. Just to make aware, like, yeah, the pub, I mean, we're not, yeah.
Yep, no, we gotta be
Yeah.
compliant with.
And
the-
then I just want to say too, in regards for the township as well, we have our number on our informational sign. And then that the township has the information, Barry or Scott copies them about who to contact. I mean, the last how many times, my name is on the bottom of the same stuff that's submitted to you with my phone number and email. Just want to state that too, and then also too, just with no trespassing, we did post it. We will start prosecuting trespassers. As you can tell, you know where they're coming from.
Okay.
So an aerial really tells you what's going on. So,
where the
no,
trails
I
are.
appreciate that. And yeah, I'll talk to Scott and we'll get it worked out.
Okay,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Holly.
Thanks. Thanks, Holly. Okay. Is this ordinance gonna take a while? Should we have a
I
quick
hope
break?
not.
Okay.
I think I answered some of the questions ahead of time that should maybe streamline our discussion here tonight.
You wanna,
Okay.
you wanna lead into it?
Don't be too
Okay,
sure
want me
about
to?
that.
I guess I can, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So this is the public hearing for ordinance
take a
number
break?
24-7. It is the cannabis zoning regulations. This ordinance is coming out of some statutory language, so we're required to adopt an ordinance that regulates time, place, and manner for cannabis businesses within the county. The draft you have in front of you was formulated based off a model ordinance that was provided by the Office of Cannabis Management, as well as some, at the time we drafted this, Clay County was the only other county with an adopted ordinance, so we kind of used some language from both. Just tonight, we found one amendment that we have to make, which is to remove churches from, what is it,
D1B.
D1B, yep. And then also, I had added in one that says from a residential zoning district. Those two are not allowed. We're not allowed to add additional setbacks that don't exist in statute. And this was under the advice of both MCIT and representative from the, I can't remember where he was from, but he spoke at a conference I was at recently on the cannabis ordinances. There really hasn't been many counties. There's going to be a flood of counties here in the next month that are adopting just what we are. And then the other portion was D1E. I changed the verbiage a little bit just to say other cannabinoid businesses. Statute specifically says cannabis retail businesses, so I couldn't add the other ones in. So we're looking at those strikeouts and an addition for grammar in section D1, B and E.
Mr. Chair, I'd also recommend the removal of the words or library. That's also not in statute.
Okay. Ken is chomping at the bit. What more do you have questions on?
Well, anyone else can go, but I do have a number of questions.
I can maybe also help out the planning commission here. This is just our zoning ordinance. associated with this also is a much more robust registration and licensing ordinance that is going to go through public health, that is going to be finalized next week and pushed out. So that ordinance is going to have a lot more teeth to it, a lot more performance standards to it, and a lot more regulations for hours, time, place, and manner, security requirements for businesses. This ordinance, what you have here before you, is just dealing with zoning and where it's going to be. And when you read it, we indicate in there, we need everything you're sending over to public health as well, so we can incorporate it into this. So we didn't want to duplicate what's going on the public health licensing registration side into the zoning ordinance. We didn't think we need to duplicate it. We just need to, really what this is trying to do is just say, this is the area where these types of businesses can occur. Here are the setbacks pursuant to those zoning ordinance.
And the only districts we're allowing them are in commercial and industrial, are B1, B2, and I1. Including cultivation, because cultivation isn't what you think of as normal crop farming. They're gonna be within buildings, it's gonna be those types of operations. There's security requirements that don't exist, in a standard agricultural operation. So that's why we're limiting those as well to these areas.
And also for cultivation, if you're like me and you drive through the Otsego MnDOT area, I did it for 3-4 years, and I always thought the person in front of me was smoking weed at a particular point, and then I realized, no, it's the cultivation plant when the wind is coming from the easterly direction. So there were many times like, God, that car in front of me is smoking weed.
Mr. Chair, just one question. I mean, first, I don't know what weed smells like, and so I don't
Oh,
know
yeah,
what you
yeah.
were. I don't
Very
know what
nice,
he-
Pat.
I don't know
Nice
what-
job, Pat.
I don't know what he was thinking, but that's a likely
you and Bill
story.
Clinton.
From a zoning perspective and a burden on the resources of zoning, the way our ordinance is set up, if it's not identified as a potential conditional use in some other district, we're not going to get a flood of, I want to grow my weed or build my shed or put my hydroponic operation in some shed out in the country coming to this board, right?
No.
There's not a pathway.
Every residential parcel in the county is permitted to have 8 plants.
Fine, but if somebody wants to have more than that, like this isn't going to fall within a commercial agricultural tourism.
No.
We don't need to do anything that excludes cannabinoids or whatever these things are.
You are permitted up to every residential parcel in the county is permitted 8 plants. Anything beyond that becomes a crime, and you have to have licensure to do anything different. And what we have articulated in the statute are how many licenses are there? If there's 10 or 13 licenses, I think, that are permitted by the state. And those are the ones that we have defined, that the state has listed, here are the licenses you can have. We defined what zoning district that those licenses can be seen in. Does that help, Pat?
Yes, they are permitted as an IUP in those identified districts. There is no pathway to getting an IUP, CUP, or otherwise in any other district.
No,
Okay.
what you would probably be looking at in a tourism recreational area would be a mezzo cannabis business, which involves growing and selling at the same time. I explained it to Member Felger. I see it more as your craft brewery where they have the plants in the back, they go back and they pick some and say, have a nice day, Mr. Mulberg.
I'm impressed with his knowledge.
Here's a box of brownies as you walk out the door, or a bag of Doritos.
Well, I bet he's been working on it for longer than that.
Yeah,
Background
probably.
research.
Nice try, Pat.
That was good.
All right, anything else?
That's all I wanted to know.
Hey, Pat, your client works in Colorado. We're not going to make any assumptions.
Ken, did you have anything?
Mr. Kreiser, you were not to allude to the fact that I did not know what mezzo businesses were, and I
Well, I
need.
didn't embarrass you in front of anyone but our deputy, who probably also doesn't know.
I just met him tonight. He's my new pal Heath, so I think.
Yeah.
All right, just never mind. Just a broad question. Now, our ordinance amendments or ordinances, Wright County ordinances affect only those areas outside of incorporated municipalities such as cities, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, I'm looking at the statutory authorization and purpose. We can, as far as I read this, and correct me, Mr. Kreiser, and you probably may already have, but it says we have the authority to establish the time, place, and manner. Now, if I take the term place, that means, can we say you cannot do it within 2,000 feet of a school?
No, we cannot, because the next sentence in that statute says we can only do it within 1,000 feet.
But it's a place, and we're authorized to establish the place.
Yep, but the next sentence articulates with specificity the area that we can set the setback to.
Yes?
So the place in that instance is dealing with zoning. So we are limiting it to the place of business or industrial.
Okay. We have such authority, I believe, because we're not prohibiting it. So you're saying absolutely, we have to follow absolutely what the Minnesota state statute deems to be appropriate in terms of that distance.
You cannot exceed the setbacks that we have put in this ordinance. We have put into this ordinance the maximum setbacks.
And what if we would exceed them?
Then you would get sued and we would lose and we pay their attorney's fees.
Okay. I think it's kind of hypocritical, too, that it states in here that Wright County recognizes the risks and unintended access to cannabis products may present to health, welfare, safety of the public, especially youth. Now, aren't there ordinances within the Wright County that states that we are out here to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public?
Yes, that's one of our main criteria, Member Felger, but in this particular case, we have 100 pages of codification that limit our authority to the extent that the county can't even regulate or register or license cannabis without a township giving us consent. So all we can do is zoning, and we are literally going through the process trying to get 36 joint powers agreements with all of our governmental entities in Wright County, including every township and every city, to give us the authority to go out and register it within their jurisdiction.
Okay. Another thing that you had explained to me, and perhaps for the edification or interest of the other members of the board here, I questioned a cannabis retailer definition. Now, are these our definitions, or were these also given to us by the
These
state?
were given to us by the state.
They were, okay. Thank you. Under the cannabis retailer definition, it says any person, partnership, firm, corporation, or association, foreign or domestic. Well, that kind of struck me, foreign or domestic. Okay, so that could possibly mean that entity from China or Russia or Iran or any host of other nations around the world that hate America can come in here and sell cannabis to our youth. Am I incorrect? It also, as you explained, a foreign corporation could be Wisconsin.
It'd be a corporation domiciled out of the state of Wisconsin operating in Minnesota. That's a foreign corporation, according to the Secretary of State.
And I don't believe they can sell to youth.
I'm just bringing this up because.
No, that's why it says foreign or domestic. It's any person, partnership, foreign, corporation, or association, foreign or domestic.
Well,
What we're dealing with is Minnesota state and literally out of state. So if they're
okay,
incorporated in a different state, we view that as a foreign corporation.
All right. Another thing here, did we have days of operation somewhere proposed in here? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, under number 4, retail, we have retail operations from 10 to 9.
And where is that, Mr. Kreiser? What page?
On page 4,
Page 4?
number 4, middle. Retail operations, paragraph 1, hours of
Oh, that
operation.
page fell off, yeah.
And 4A1 hours.
Okay, yeah. Why do we include Sunday?
Because you can
We
sell alcohol
mirrored
on
that
Sunday.
to- Didn't we mirror that to alcohol?
Yes.
So
Yes, so this ordinance, before it came here, went through the county's revisor committee, which is 2 commissioners, myself, administration, and legal. They went over this draft, and this is what came out of that after it was drafted.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that that was modeled around the liquor
Yep.
sales on Sunday. I would propose that we take any of these activities, retail activities, take Sunday out of the picture. That would be my recommendation to this board to forward on to the county board. I mean, some days or something has to be sacred in our society where, hey, there are some rules. I mean, this whole damn thing, in fact, what the state did, just upset the hell out of me. Don't we have enough vice in this state and our society already? Why are we adding more? But that's not your problem. That's not our problem. It's the state of Minnesota legislature, I think, that passed this. But in any event, we have an opportunity, I think, to make one change. I understand all the other things I would had proposed, but I can't. And let's take Sunday out. Just because it follows the booze laws doesn't mean we have to follow it with the weed.
Commissioner Felger, I think,
Yes.
I want to say that I agree with you, but because we want this to be as seamless and easily understandable to our law enforcement, they're the ones, and if they can just, in their head, in their mind, know that this is when they can sell alcohol, this is when they can sell cannabis. So then, when they see somebody beyond those times, they're aware that they can go in and do something about it. And I think that's where me and Commissioner Ketchmark, figured that makes sense.
Yeah, it probably makes sense, but,
Member Felger, you're actually limited to what you can do under Minnesota statute 342.27 subdivision 7, and I'm not even sure what we have before you is going to comply with that. We may have to adjust it again to actually make it longer on Sundays.
you're kidding. Well, every time I bring up an exception, the proposed exception, it gets worse. You took out church, which I brought up the subject of, there are other places of worship. Now I'm bringing up Sunday sales, and you're saying we haven't allowed them long enough, Sunday hours.
These laws have been literally,
This has been drafted
Coming-
so that we have no authority.
right, we don't.
The legislature drafted this, so there is no local control.
And as soon as they caught wind, because we did have a city that was going to say, okay, we'll take our one retail, because you have to have so many per your population, said we'll make it a municipal cannabis shop and never open. And other people must have done it too, because soon after that was said, they tweaked the rule to say you cannot do that.
Well, what they did is they tweaked it so that your municipal didn't count towards the cap.
Yes.
Yes, so you can do that, but we're just gonna have another one come in.
As
Yeah,
soon,
They
as soon
killed the
as,
municipal businesses immediately.
yeah. for basically a year and a half. It's been,
I just don't like stuff shoved down our throat where we have no authority to do anything here.
yeah.
Mr.
It's
Chair,
just my personal feeling. and I-
Mr. Chair, Ken, this has been happening for many years.
I'm
It's
sorry?
been shoved down our throat for a long time. My opinion of this
What do you-
whole thing
I
is,
couldn't hear him.
He says it's been happening for many years. It's been shoved down our throat.
but, Mr. Chair, my opinion of the hours on this thing, it's not gonna change the amount of sales one iota. Not one iota. Whether we like the hours or not, it's not gonna change the outcome. It's not.
Oh, I get it, but why can't we just speak up and say, no, we don't like that? I don't care to give the state carte blanche on what they're shoving down our throats. And it does cause more problem for law enforcement, I'm sure. I'm still thinking, let's change it, get Sunday out of there. I give credit to law enforcement to make the distinction. Alcohol, yes, on Sunday, weed, no. I don't know, maybe I'm just spoken emotionally here, but I'm just ticked off at this whole damn thing.
Well, one of the things that I know is that I grew up in a dry county, Candy, Ohio County, no liquor on Sundays, and everybody drove to the county line and crossed over and got liquor.
Great,
Yeah.
let them.
And I, my parents didn't, but I mean, a lot of people did, and it
Oh,
was
yeah.
just the way to
yeah.
do.
I agree. I used to drive across the border in Wisconsin when I was 16 years old and present a fake ID at the Bloody Bucket and drink beer.
Yeah,
Okay, so it happens.
yeah.
And fine, I guess I had to abide by the rules in Minnesota that you can't drink until you're 21. But yeah, they go across the border and I say, well, let them. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I agree with that like Sunday should be a church day rather than a other day. But
I guess that's all. All the farther I'd say, I just recommend takeout Sunday. And I'll make that a motion. Mr. Chair, may I?
You may make a motion, yes. My question first, under that, under what Greg has already said, is that even anything we can do? I mean, we can do it, take it out, and the commissioners will just put it back in?
Yes, and
that
that's probably all the farther that I think
Okay,
my
I just wanna
suggestion would go.
clarify.
Yeah, I think they're gonna hear it from us, and if the elected county commissioners want to do it, Mr. Chair, well, then that's their prerogative. That's what they're there for. So I would say we as a board, take Sunday out. Make that recommendation to the Wright County Commissioners. And that's my motion.
Okay, I have a-
Mr. Chairman, there's a motion written that this should be included in, but the motion should be read according to how it's written, because we have amendments within what was posted for publication that need to be addressed as part of this as well.
Okay.
So I got to be a little bit more detailed in my motion. Is that what you're saying, Barry?
Yes, I would say that the motion that is written, use that, and then add your additional change to that motion that's written.
I get you. I'll make it as an amendment after someone else makes that motion to approve the proposed ordinance.
Did you find it, Ken?
Yeah,
There's-
my thing's
I'll
falling
make a
apart
motion to
here.
close the public hearing to all oral and written comment and recommend approval of the ordinance 24/7 with the noted revisions to section D1B and D1C to the Wright County Board of Commissioners.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Is that D1E or D1C?
You said C, it should
Oh,
be
it's
D1E.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to amend the motion to exclude any Sunday sales.
Are you making that as an amended?
Amendment to the motion, yes.
Okay. Do I have a second for an amendment to the motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment to the motion?
That should be listed as striking 4A1, the everything after Saturday in the first sentence.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Pat?
Do we actually, as I look at sub 7, A and B, I don't think we have any authority to actually prohibit the sale on Sunday whatsoever. And so for that reason, and because I don't think our voice really matters in this, I'm going to vote against the amendment. But I understand where you're coming from, Ken.
Thank you.
Well, may I speak?
Janice? Yes, we have discussion.
Well, I'm going to vote for it because I think that if I feel that way, I should have it included in there. And I really believe that Sunday should not be a day of selling alcohol either. So I like the motion, and I'm going to stick to it.
All right.
Well, obviously, I'm going to support the amendment too, Mr. Chair, but it's not simply because it'll end at the county ward level. I just need to make my voice heard, and any of those of you who wish to support me in my concern, please vote in the affirmative on the amendment. And by the way, are we voting separately? Amendment first? Okay, very well.
Is there any other discussion? I guess I'm torn on it because the way we are with what we already allow, what our state legislature has passed. Alcohol does the same mood-altering things as what cannabis does. So they finally made cannabis legal, don't use it, haven't used it, but alcohol does just as much damage as what cannabis does. And we look at alcohol as no big deal, other than if you're driving and the officer catches you. And I know cannabis is new, and we're trying to get this right, but at the same token, it's been used for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that, Mr. Chair. It's just that one day, and I'm not in favor of Sunday alcohol sales either.
But
the rest of the days, people smoke pot, weed, get all buzzed up, get in car crashes and kill themselves, and somebody's always to blame or turns into a lawsuit. But the point you're making, if I understand you correctly, Mr. Chair, is that the effects of cannabis and alcohol are the same. And I agree, they are. But we have a chance here, and I don't know if we ever had a chance to speak on alcohol sales. Did that ever come before this commission? I don't think so. When they opened Sundays up? Well, that came via another avenue. This is coming before us now. Now we can say something. So, that's all I got to say.
Okay.
And I appreciate what you have to say. And as much as there's a lot of things I wouldn't have wanted in any of these ordinances, and literally it's been flying, I really appreciate our council, Kreiser, because he and Sarah from Public Health have been inundated. This is constantly getting stuff thrown at us with no choice. And I feel like even though we say something, the state's not gonna hear us. And the state's gonna come and say we have to sell it anyways. I feel like we're hand-tied and it just cleaner if we just say, let's just go with it. Because we really don't have a choice. Similar to municipals, similar to, you know, like, everybody's wrestling with it. I talked to the mayor of Hanover last night. They're wrestling with it. They don't want it. There's all of our cities don't want it at all. And now we're representing the townships. And I think, you know, what we're gonna see is the city's gonna sell it on Sundays. And if we could make it easier for our law enforcement, because they are gonna have a lot of challenges, not just times, but trying to figure out if they're impaired drivers, you know, there's just so many things involved in it, that if we can just make it a little easier for them, like we always say at this table, we have to make it easy to enforce, so that it is enforced. So if the deputy, my husband was a deputy, and if they can, in the back of their head, always know that, okay, these are the hours. I don't want them to have to go and say, oh, wait, I'm in a township. Oh, wait, I'm gonna go over to the city. It's gonna be different. So that's where I'm coming from. And then I do believe the state's gonna come in and say, well, you do alcohol, you gotta do cannabis. I know that's gonna come, if it's not already.
Janice?
Well, I think if everybody just went along with what the state said, that we would be in a pretty sorry state. But I disagree with that. I think the voices of the little people, starting at the township level, even if we get voted down, they should be heard so that they can know that the majority of the people out there are not liking this. And how are they supposed to know that if nobody makes an objection to it and says, I'm opposed to this? It's the same way with our last election that we had for the presidential election. Nobody really thought that Trump would have a chance to win, but the people raised their voices, and the snowball rolled down the hill. And eventually, the word got to, I've been hearing on the news today that Democrats are so surprised that it passed, that Trump got elected. They didn't know that bread costs almost $5 a loaf, or butter was $7 a pound. And now they're starting to know those things. And they just live in this ivory tower someplace and don't see it. So I'm voting for how I feel. And my feeling is that let somebody else roll over me, but at least they're not rolling over me without hearing my voice first.
Well said, Jan, Mr. Chair. I will fight this thing here at this right now. And I'm so adamant that we add or take out Sunday. Let's make a stand.
Yeah.
Let's make a stand here. I'm the kind of guy that'll not give up until the last breath. And again, this is going to go, our amendment, this proposal passed by us is simply going to go to the county board. Now, if they wish to take some consideration for the townships whom we speak for, I'm sure, and us, if they wish to take that into consider, maybe they'd consider taking it out too. Maybe they'd consider making a stand. And I understand, you know, switching between municipalities, hours of operation, days of operation, and so on, it's difficult. But we made a stand. We made a stand at some point, and I just do not like to be overregulated and not allowed to speak my voice where it will go nowhere, because the state says this is the way it has to be. The hell with the state. I don't, come on.
I do.
Why not, well, if you want to make a stand, just say, we're not going to pass this ordinance. Wright County is not going to abide by state legislation whatsoever. Why just Sunday? And I mean, even if we had the discretion to do it, and I'd like Greg to weigh in on if he thinks we have discretion to do it, because if we don't have discretion to eliminate Sundays, then Ken, I'd say change your amendment. Make it every day. You want to make a stand?
I will certainly do that
every
upon
day.
the advice of council.
I mean, that would be the question, because otherwise, I look at Sunday and I hear what you're saying, and I say, this isn't a Sunday issue for you, Ken. It's a Monday to Sunday issue for you.
Well, not so much. Not so much. I'm just thinking, my God, isn't there one day of the week that could be held sacred in some manner and nothing happens? Or we're all out with our families. We're not out there looking for the nearest weed retailer. You know, I think it's a societal downfall too, where we've been headed over the last several decades, but that's okay.
I agree with Ken with what you're saying. I do. I really do. But the problem is I think we've missed the boat, because it went through the legislature 4 years ago and we weren't sitting down there. I've had this argument with many people.
Yeah.
Us working stiffs can't go down to the legislature and be sitting in their offices and lobbying. So they've passed this. They've made these ordinances that we have to follow. All these legislatures, sorry, Greg, lawyers have come up with these things and these ordinances. And yes, they are shoving them down our throat, but it's been happening for years that they've been setting this up. I mean, for how many years did cannabis not make it through the legislature? And now it has.
That's
This
because they
hasn't
had
just been happening.
one party rule.
Well, but that's what happened.
I know.
Because just like Janice brought up about the vote, we had a choice to vote. We had a chance to change something, whether we Republican or Democrat. That was a vote. This has already been gone through on our vote, because we've voted people into the legislature that did this.
I get all that. Mr. Kreiser, what's your recommendation?
The statute prohibits you from prohibiting the sale of cannabis on
Does it-
all of these criteria within the townships.
Okay, so does it prohibit us as a board saying to the county board, we're not taking this under consideration? Let them decide.
The county board has to pass something by January 1st.
Fine, I'm not speaking of the county board, Mr. Kreiser. I'm talking about us. What can we do here tonight, or at least propose, that we're not going to even, as a planning commission, or planning and zoning commission,
You can,
not take this up as an issue
you
tonight?
need to take action on it one way or another.
We need to, according to whom?
We have a January 1st deadline that we have to meet. We have no
Well,
discretion.
no,
on that.
my question is, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, Mr. Kreiser, is that, who says we have to as a board? Because it affects zoning?
If you don't, the planning commission, the county board can probably just go remove this from the planning commission and adopt ordinance 24-7,
Well,
because
I'm
you've
sure
done
they
the
will.
public hearing.
I'm sure they will.
Well,
But,
I'm going to request that they do, because I'm going to meet state law, which requires an ordinance in effect by January 1st.
okay, what would prevent this board from saying, we as a appointed planning and zoning commission board are not going to even consider this?
You can recommend denial of the entire ordinance 24-7, and we'll present it to the county board with your recommendation, and I will request that it be adopted.
Okay, very well. Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make
We
a
already
motion.
have.
Isn't there a motion on the
we already
table
have-
already?
We already have a motion on the floor for an amendment for Sunday. Plus, we already have a motion to pass this with a second. So I have to deal with
Yeah.
voting for the amendment for no Sunday sales first.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself, Mr. Chair.
So,
I have one more question for the attorney. Did I hear you right when you said we can't have sales on holidays? cannabis sales on holidays. Did I hear you right?
There's nothing in the statute that says anything with
Oh,
regards to
shucks.
holidays.
I was thinking we could make Sunday a holiday. But
So-
no, I thought I heard you say that. I'm sorry.
Is there any more discussion on the
On the
amendment
amendment.
for?
Tangential to the amendment, Greg, is a path forward to take a vote to say the planning commission makes no recommendation one way or the other to the county board, but recommends that the county board act in compliance with its legal obligations as directed by council with respect to this and all other matters.
Yes, the planning commission can do that.
Okay, then that's where I would say we should end up with this, because not a single one of us can bring any expertise to bear in the very narrow band that we're being asked to do anything in. Greg has said he's drafted this thing and we can't do anything. So let's recognize that we've not done anything and let our elected policymakers decide if they want to make a stand that means something or not. That'd be my preference on where this whole thing ends up.
That would be the shortcut, because I know at the county board, if this recommendation or this amendment passes and then the motion passes with that amendment attached, that'd get killed at the county board anyway.
Yes,
So we
as
can
it probably
amend-
should, Ken. As it probably should, right? The county board is somewhere in the hierarchy beneath the state legislature. That's just the way it is. And the chairman's point of this ship sailed is, I think, the good one. The nail has been pounded into the coffin on cannabis. We're window dressing, and barely.
So then, Mr. Chair, where does that leave us? Should we decide to go to that point, even though there's an amendment and a motion on the floor?
Mr. Chair, we have an amendment to the motion.
We have to vote first on the amendment
Okay.
to the motion, whether that passes or fails, and then we have a motion to close public hearing and oral and written comment and recommend approval to the ordinance. We have to deal with that first before we can go on anything else, depending on passing or failing on these. So, is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, I will ask for the vote on the amendment for the Sunday sales. All those in favor of sending to the county board that there would be no Sunday sales? Is that correct to the amendment? That is the
Basically,
first
yes.
vote. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same way.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion fails. So the next motion would be, is there any more discussion, would be for the motion on the floor is to close public hearing to all oral and written comment and recommend approval of ordinance 24/7 with the noted revisions. They've already been stated, so I'm not going to repeat them. Is there any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of sending that on to the county signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way.
Aye.
Aye.
So it fails on a 4-2 vote. So
Didn't you vote?
we have
I was against.
another motion.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that the planning commission take no approval or denial on the matter, but refer it to the county board so that the county board can act on the ordinance as it sees fit with the good advice of council.
I'd second that, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion made and seconded. Do we have any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way.
Aye.
I'll let the motion show that Dan Bravender voted in opposition.
Could you go one more time over the closed public hearing? I didn't catch the first two people that said no. Or, yeah.
The,
Two people, who were the two?
Ken and Jan were in favor of, yes.
don't make us remember how we voted.
I never did vote on the last thing.
Oh.
I started to, and then you called but I was gonna vote
that
with
was-
Dan.
Going in yes, right?
I voted,
You say you didn't vote on the last one?
yeah, on the last
Okay,
one.
I think chairman's still counting.
I counted you as a yes.
Yeah, well, I
You would have voted,
want to.
would have voted,
For the first one, yes, I voted.
okay.
First one.
Are you abstaining from the last one, Jan? Is that what you're?
Yes, I'm voting no, like Dan Bravender did.
To send
Okay,
it to the
to-
board?
Right.
You're voting no to send it to the board.
What,
You're voting no to send it to the board with a neutral recommendation.
yeah,
Okay, and that's fine. Motion still passes 4-2 then with Janice voting no and Dan Bravender voting no. Okay,
Voting no on the scapegoat.
all right.
We just have to read that something.
We don't
Mr.
have
Chair, site
any,
inspection.
It makes
yep,
sense.
we don't have anything left on our agenda. We have to set site inspection
Oh, shit.
for the gravel pit
one of me.
and
The plat
The plat.
and on Lake Mary.
On the,
on Lake Mary.
yeah.
What do people have open? Probably the sooner the better because of the weather.
The weather, yes.
I know we have to get up to that gravel pit, Jan, before the snow flies, right?
Yeah,
Remember what happened last time?
yeah.
Got stuck? We had to push you out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that, but that's right.
So it's the 7th today. Anything next week? I know I cannot do it on the 13th.
The only day I have is the
But don't-
12th.
Hold
I
on,
know
I'm
Jeannie
on
can't.
vacation this week.
I'm out of town next week.
Okay,
the
so
entire week.
then we get into, I'll be gone 18th to the 20th for November 21 or 22 that week. 21 or 22 in November.
I think I'm open.
Dan?
I'm looking here.
No.
I'm out those 2 days, but I'll have staff drive, so no big deal.
Okay, let's jump into the 25th
Yeah, we like
to
Scott better
27th.
anyways. Just kidding.
Ooh, ouch.
Well, Scott's been known to get into accidents too, so
I
be
know, that's
careful.
right. He does watch it.
25th and 26th, they're okay.
25th, 26th?
It's the day before Thanksgiving. Aren't you going to run into some travel? I'd assume on the 27th, we're going to have some travel problems for people with Thanksgiving the next day.
26th works, that's Tuesday.
Yep.
Does 26 work for the board? We're going to work on the board.
I can't. I have a meeting at 10 to noon.
Well, if we start at 8, we'll be back by 10 if you have here.
Oh, I'll be down in St. Paul. That's what it is.
25th or
On the
26th?
26th, I'm in St. Paul at the Senate.
Bad
So
answer.
25th works really good for me.
the 25th.
Did we discuss the 25th?
Dan, 25th.
I don't think I'm gonna be back by then.
You guys just do whatever works like it.
Jeannie drives
Goes
by
from
it every
the
day.
24th to the 28th.
Yeah, exactly.
Calendar. Yeah, I suppose I could do it on
The
the,
Lake Mary one I know. and
How
Gravel
about
Pit I
December,
know.
how about December 2nd? When do we have our meeting, the 5th or the 12th?
how about tomorrow?
When is our meeting, the 5th of
It'll
December?
be sunny, warm.
The 12th is our
The
next
5th
meeting.
is truth and taxation, Jeannie.
Huh?
Oh,
But that's at night, so
the
you're fine.
5th is?
The 5th that night is truth and taxation.
December 2nd? That's a Monday.
That works.
How about you,
Yeah.
Pat?
Second works.
Okay.
Time?
Okay, second. Everybody's on for the second?
When is the next P and Z?
The
12th.
12th.
12th of December. Okay, the 2nd of December,
Good on second?
Yeah, I'm good.
8:30?
Okay.
8:30, December 2nd, site inspection.
Meet here.
8:30 here.
8:30, leaving at 8.
We'll leave at 8:30.
Leaving here at 8:30. We did it. All right, if there's nothing else to come before the board right now, do I have a motion to?
I had one more thing, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
sorry.
got one more
Don't
thing?
worry. Way out ahead, we talked about a training session.
Yes,
So we have a prospective date and time of January 24th at 9 a.m.
I won't be here.
24th. I got something going on that day. I can't remember.
We already know we're not gonna be able to coordinate this with 12 people.
Is it in the morning?
It'd be 9 AM.
Is it a Friday?
Yes.
Yes,
Which,
Yeah, that works
which day?
January 24th.
It works for me, but.
You already know all the laws.
You don't need to schedule it around me, though.
Yeah, we,
Do you
it'd
have
be
any-
I'll
impossible.
catch up with Craig
We'll
afterward.
just get out the digest and start reading it.
I'll send you the PowerPoint,
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
because I will have a PowerPoint. Okay,
I'm going to be in Georgia.
okay.
All right. Well, Barry threw it out there. Does anybody else have anything else, or can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. The meeting is over. Thank you, everybody.
So that date too, we haven't cleared it with the Board of Adjustment yet, but that's just the date we're throwing out there to try to get feedback on it.
Is it because they have